Chapter 826. If Bai Xiaowen activated Lure, they would be able to find the real Han Su. However, the team's skill would enter cooldown and they wouldn't be able to identify the real Han Su in a short period of time. If Li Shi chose one of the two Han Su and activated Lure, they would be able to identify the real Han Su. If the Li Shi chosen by Bai Xiaowen was a fake, they wouldn't be able to use Lure, no matter what, and they would be exposed. If the Li Shi chosen by Bai Xiaowen was the real Han Su, then the Lure wouldn't work and the skill wouldn't enter cooldown. Then, she would use Lure on the other Han Su and pull the real Han Su over. Then, the two real Han Su would be able to identify themselves and the other two fakes would be exposed. Qiao Rui shook her head and smiled bitterly. Why didn't she think of such a simple method? Maybe it was because this gloomy treasure trove was too depressing. The Li Shi chosen by Bai Xiaowen hesitated. How can you be so sure that this method will work? What if the ghost also uses Lure? Surround it, Bai Xiaowen ordered coldly. The summoned creatures swarmed forward and surrounded the Li Shi. She never questions my judgment. Her first reaction is to execute it. So, you are a fake. Following Bai Xiaowen's words, the summoned creatures surrounded the Li Shi. The body of the Li Shi suddenly shook and became tall and thin. Its whole body flowed like smoke. On the surface of the smoke body, there were blurry human faces. It let out a shrill cry. You saw through me. But it's meaningless. You're all going to die here. The bark of a defeated dog, the rage of incompetence. Bai Xiaowen snorted and looked at the two Han Zus. One of them, Han Su, who had always been with Qiao Rui, saw that the situation was not good and also revealed his real body. This was another ghostly creature with a blurry human face and a smoky body. It waved its long ghostly claws and swiped at the real Han Su who had followed Bai Xiaowen over. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I'm the only you. What was worth mentioning was that the ghost that had transformed into Li Shi was a level 7 commander-level creature after it regained its ghost form. It was on par with Li Shi. The ghost that had transformed into Han Su was a level 7 elite. Then, under the siege of the White Phoenix team, the two ghosts were unable to do anything and dissipated one after another. You've obtained Spirit of Ghost Transformation, Fragment, X3. You've obtained the Spirit of Ghost Transformation, Fragment. Commander-level ghosts will drop 3 fragments at once. It seems that the transformation of these ghosts follows the law of conservation of energy, Bai Xiaowen joked. Qiao Rui said with some lingering fear, so the Han Su that followed you here was the real one. The Han Su that I met first was a ghost. I was almost fooled by him. Alright, everyone should have activated the Huaiwang village's serene white stone side mission now, right? Bai Xiaowen said. This mission should be activated as long as you participate in killing ghosts. His teammates nodded in unison. So far, apart from the normal ghost babies, there are 3 types of powerful ghosts that our team has encountered: host ghosts, scapegoat ghosts, and shifter ghosts. Perhaps there's a 4th type of ghost, the mind-reading ghost. However, I suspect that these 4 types of ghosts can communicate with each other through some unknown method, similar to our team's communication channel. Bai Xiaowen said slowly, apart from the scapegoat ghosts, the other ghosts have a clear division of labor. The host ghost has the protection of the serene white stone. When it is possessing us, it should be collecting our attribute data and sharing it with the shape-shifting ghost. With the help of the mind-reading ghost, the shape-shifting ghost can perfectly replicate any one of us. Then what are the scapegoat ghosts responsible for? Li Shi asked. We don't have enough information to make a judgment. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. We've only been in the treasure space for half a day, so the types of ghosts we've encountered are not complete. Perhaps there are other ghosts that can cooperate with the scapegoat ghosts. I feel like the shifter ghosts are the only ones with stronger combat power. Although the other ghosts have their own abilities, they're all elites in nature. At this point, Bai Xiaowen concluded, our next mission is to find and kill all kinds of ghosts, collect their fragments, and piece together a complete disguise. What we've encountered so far is the periphery. The thick fog area where Huaiwang Village is located is the center. I suspect that the Space Stone is in Huaiwang Village. Huaiwang Village, what a strange name, Xiaorui said. It's actually a ghost village. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand. Huaiwang Village means wood ghost. The word wood in Wang, isn't that the word Wang? Just from this name alone, it means that the entire village is full of ghosts who died unjustly. According to the ancient legends of Huaxia, people who died unjustly are the most evil. They're unwilling to reincarnate and become evil ghosts. Li Shi shuddered. We need to speed up. Although we're the first to set off, the other two teams won't be much slower than us. I estimate that we're only 1 or 2 hours ahead of them. When it comes to the management rights of a new treasure space, even an A-class guild will treat it seriously. We must be the first to uncover the secret of this treasure space and activate the Space Stone. This is a good opportunity for our White Phoenix battle team, and even the super gods to rise to prominence. Bai Xiaowen said with a serious expression. Li Shi immediately put away the fear on his face. Got it, I'll work hard. After the White Phoenix battle team completed their rendezvous, they spent the next 2 days clearing out the outer areas of the mist and killing many ghosts. During this time, the White Phoenix battle team also encountered other competitors. However, due to the existence of an agreement that prohibited malicious attacks, everyone tacitly went around each other after encountering each other. They wouldn't attack each other, and of course, they wouldn't communicate with each other either. In these 2 days, it was obvious that the other two A-class teams gradually completed their rendezvous. No one knew what method they used to identify the transformation ghosts, but it wasn't strange. It would be inconceivable if an A-class team was defeated by this kind of trick. Finally, on the 3rd day after entering the treasure space, the White Phoenix battle team collected enough ghost fragments and pieced together 5 complete ghost disguises. The reason why he used the word bead was because a complete ghost disguise was a small, pitch-black sphere. It was cold to the touch, and with just a thought, it could cover the surface of the body, creating a layer of eerie ghostly energy. The 5 disguise balls included 2 transformation ghost spirits, 2 scapegoat ghost spirits, and 1 host ghost spirit. The mind-reading ghost that Bai Xiaowen speculated had never appeared. Perhaps the transformation ghosts themselves had the ability to read minds. Carrying the 5 disguise balls, the White Phoenix battle team once again arrived in front of the thick mist in the central area. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 827. After the 5 disguise balls were used, the 5 members of the White Phoenix team, including Cecilia, were shrouded in ghostly aura. Their figures also became much more hazy. Even teammates could not see each other's faces clearly when they looked at each other. They could only see hazy silhouettes. When they walked, they could not see the movements of their legs under the cover of the ghostly aura. It was as if they were ghosts floating around. Let's go in. Bai Xiaowen said, the danger level in Huiqing Village might be much higher than in the periphery. Let's walk together after we go in. Don't get separated. His teammates nodded in unison. The 5 of them filed into the thick fog. As expected, Bai Xiaowen's conjecture was correct. When they had ghost-type spiritual bodies to disguise themselves, the ghostly aura in the thick fog would no longer cause damage to their health points or mental strength. As they walked, Li Shi suddenly said, "Do you feel weightless? It's as if your body is getting lighter and lighter." Li Shi was an expert in close combat. He was very sensitive to the slightest changes in his body. That seems to be the case. Cecilia also confirmed this. Let's keep walking. No matter what happens, don't look back, Bai Xiaowen said. The 5 of them continued forward. The feeling of their bodies becoming lighter and lighter became more and more obvious. Towards the end, even Han Su could feel it clearly. After walking for an unknown period of time, the outline of a village vaguely appeared in front of them. However, under the cover of the thick fog, there seemed to be a dim screen of light that enveloped the entire village. Abstract images of human faces flashed on this dim screen of light from time to time. It was extremely eerie. At first glance, the screen of light did not look like it was protecting the village. Instead, it looked like it was imprisoning them. Bai Xiaowen raised his hand to summon a summoned creature. It touched the screen of light. In an instant, the summoned creature disappeared. However, Bai Xiaowen could still feel the connection with it. It's safe. This screen of light probably allows entry but not exit. Of course, after entering, as long as we can find the space stone and solve the mystery inside, we can come out, Bai Xiaowen said. The four of them nodded. Even though Huiqing village was filled with eeriness, no one was willing to back down at this point. For the sake of safety, Bai Xiaowen once again sent a skeleton swordsman in. The two summoned creatures stare at each other in the light curtain. Yes, this light curtain doesn't have the effect of spatial dislocation. In other words, the five of us don't have to split up anymore. It had to be said that this was good news. With the five of them together, their ability to deal with danger had increased by a lot. They also didn't have to worry about ghosts like shape-shifting ghosts causing trouble. After stepping into the light screen together, the five members of the White Phoenix squad exclaimed in surprise at the same time. The sense of weightlessness in his body disappeared, and the ghostly fog in front of him became much fainter. With the vision of an awakened, at least their vision was no longer obstructed. They were at the entrance of the village. They could see a large road in front of them. On the left side of the road were rows of houses, while on the right side were abandoned farmlands. On the left were rows of thatched huts made of mud. Their line of sight was blocked and they couldn't see clearly. However, the farmland on the right was more spacious. Occasionally, one could see phosphorescence in the mist, and there seemed to be shadows floating around. "Do you guys hear anything?" Qiao Rui suddenly asked. In the depths of the village, there seemed to be the sound of gongs and drums. However, the sound was very strange. It was intermittent and extremely low, like the background music of a horror movie, Bai Xiaowen said. It seems that the ghost bride we're looking for is in the depths of the village. There's a wedding being held there. A ghost wedding? Li Shi shrank his neck. A ghost wedding. This custom was very common in ancient Huaxia, Bai Xiaowen explained to his teammates as he led the team forward. A ghost wedding is also called a ghost wedding or a ghost match. It's a ceremony where parents betroth their children who died young so that they won't feel lonely in the afterlife. Usually, a ghost matchmaker will propose the marriage, then make the underworld clothes, hold the marriage ceremony, and then the man and woman will be buried together. The houses in the village always make people feel depressed. Don't you think these rows of houses look like mausoleums? Qiao Rui suddenly said. She walked to the door of a house and pointed at a sign erected in front of the door. This says Liujia Village Group 7, number 3. It should be the house number, but I think it looks like a tombstone. Liujia Village? Isn't it called Huaiwang Village? Li Shi asked. It might be the village's name before the changes happened. Bai Xiaowen walked over and carefully looked at the tombstone-like house number. He narrowed his eyes and said, "This line of words gives me some additional information. The background of this Liujia village. I'm afraid it's modern. It uses simplified characters instead of traditional characters. Historically, Huaxia's reform of simplified characters began in the mid-2050s AD. It would take at least another 10 or 20 years to develop to the point where every house used simplified characters. Considering that the era of psionic energy would begin in 2021, and considering the relatively dilapidated mud walls and thatched huts of Huaiwang village, the background of this place was most likely between the 1970s and the 90s of the 20th century. Of course, this did not exclude the possibility that some extremely remote villages were still poor in the 21st century, but in terms of proportion, the possibility was relatively small. Bai Xiaowen's group followed the direction of the sound of the gongs and drums and walked into the village. Suddenly, two shadows floated over from the opposite side of the road. Are they ghosts? In the team channel, Li Shi rubbed his fists. Should we get rid of them? Don't be in such a hurry, Bai Xiaowen said. The five of them brushed past the two shadows. The two shadows that seemed to be ghosts did not show any signs of attack. Instead, when they brushed past each other, they kept staring at the five of them. This behavior was exactly the same as when villagers in a remote area saw unfamiliar outsiders. We have ghosts on us to disguise ourselves. Those two ghosts probably think we're their kind. Bai Xiaowen said, after entering this place, our main goal is to find the ghost bride. Our main goal is to find clues and solve mysteries. Unless it's absolutely necessary, try not to fight. When they passed by the door of a house, a gust of cold wind suddenly blew from the mud wall, and a few pieces of paper flew toward them. Bai Xiaowen casually picked up the paper. It was filled with words. February 7th, clear weather. My childhood memories have faded. I can only recall a small outline of that crazy era. Ever since our family was sent to this place called Liujia village, it was as if we were cut off from the rest of the world. Mother's eyes were red all the time. When I asked her where her father was, she wouldn't tell me. Later, I found out that my father was dead. He died under the torture and humiliation of his students. Mother's leg was broken. Second sister and I were still young. The family relied on Big Brother to earn work points. We could only eat 2 meals a day. The corn was so blurry that I could see shadows. I was so hungry. Chapter 828. After Bai Xiaowen read the handwriting, the page was like paper money that had been burned, turning into ashes and dissipating with the wind. Who wrote this? Qiao Rui asked. Bai Xiaowen thought for a moment and said, it should be written by a family of intellectuals who were sent to the countryside from the city during a special period. From this page, we can see that there are 4 people in the family, a mother who has trouble walking, an adult, or almost adult brother, and a pair of sisters. The author of the diary is the youngest sister. Qiao Rui said, this might be a clue to Huaiwang village. We should go look for other diary pages. Bai Xiaowen said, it's a clue, but it's more likely to be a trap. Don't you think that the appearance of these diary pages is very strange? They were suddenly blown to us by the wind. Also, when I was reading the diary pages, I had an uncomfortable feeling in my heart, as if there was a pair of eyes staring at me from behind. Qiao Rui's expression changed slightly as he nodded and said, I also had that feeling. I thought it was just an illusion. Awakened ones had very sharp senses, especially Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui, 2 hero jobs with high agility. Bai Xiaowen looked at the wall of earth where the diary pages had come from. The gate of the courtyard was locked. Perhaps the family had all gone to participate in the ghost wedding. Bai Xiaowen controlled the shadow assassin and entered the courtyard by climbing over the wall while being invisible. After searching for a while, he really did find a second diary page. There was no date on this page, and it seemed that a small part of it had been torn off. Life is very difficult, but Sister Yurong from the Hua family next door often comes to help us. Sometimes she brings a piece of cornmeal steamed bun, sometimes half a bowl of porridge. Sister Yurong often says that the Hua family and the Zhou family are small families in Liujia village, so we have to help each other. The Hua family's life isn't easy either, but they are stronger than ours. Sister Yurong's grandfather is an old man in Liujia village. It is said that he knows martial arts and is very prestigious. Brother Zhou Bin plays the huqin very well. When he comes back from work at night, he will play a section. That huqin is also the last thing that Dad left for us. When Big Brother plays the zither, I often see Big Sister Yurong sitting on a small stool next to the mud wall and listening. I ran over to her, and she took out a steamed bun from her pocket and gave it to me. Sometimes Sister Yurong would stroke my head, put me on her knees, and call me by my nickname Little Duo. Sister Yurong is the best person I've ever met. What was worth mentioning was that, unlike the torn diary page that had been blown away by the wind, the page that the shadow assassin found did not dissipate with the wind after reading it. There are 3 names on this half page of the diary, Bai Xiaowen said. The girl from the Hua family should be called Hua Yurong. The eldest son of the Zhou family is called Zhou Bin. The youngest daughter of the Zhou family, the author of this diary, is probably called Zhou Xiaoduo. Qiao Rui said, Hua Yurong seems to like Zhou Bin. That's normal. After all, Zhou Bin used to be a city dweller, so he's definitely different from the boys in Liujia village. He even knows how to play the huqin. In that era, he would be a proper artistic youth. Li Shi said. Yes, Zhou Bin should be considered one of the more outstanding young people in Liujia village. It's normal that he attracted Hua Yurong's attention, Bai Xiaowen said. The diary also specifically mentioned that Hua Yurong's grandfather knows martial arts. Perhaps this will be one of the bosses we have to face. The group continued forward, and they did not find any more torn diary pages along the way. According to Bai Xiaowen's speculation, these torn diary pages should be found in the houses of the villagers who had a special relationship with the Zhou family. Soon, the White Phoenix team followed the sound of gongs and drums and arrived at the scene of the Minghan wedding. Although it was called a Minghan, it was no different from a normal wedding. There was the same big red she character, followed by a gongs and drums team and a welcoming team. It was very lively. However, in this lively atmosphere, there was always a stifling feeling. Most of the surrounding villagers who were watching the fun had indifferent expressions. Fortunately, these villagers did not notice the difference between the 5 of them. Only a few nearby saw the strangers enter the village and took a few more glances. Suddenly, a figure floated over. Bai Xiaowen originally thought that it was the ghost of a villager who had come to interrogate them. However, when he got closer, how was that a ghost? It was clearly an awakened who had put on a ghost spirit disguise like them. It was just that they could not see the other party's face clearly through the disguise's ghost energy. The young awakened gave Bai Xiaowen a wink, and Bai Xiaowen nodded. The 6 of them left quietly and began to talk in a secluded alley. Let me introduce myself. My name is Qin Bing, said the young awakened. So you're the captain of the Radiance team. I've heard a lot about you, said Bai Xiaowen. Before coming to the treasure land, Bai Xiaowen had done his homework. At least, he could match the faces and names of the members of the Radiance team and Giant Gods team. He also understood the basic information. You're the team of super gods, right? Qin Bing smiled, appearing rather friendly. I didn't expect the 5 of you to be able to come in so quickly. Impressive. The Radiance team came in earlier than us, right? Bai Xiaowen responded with a smile. The atmosphere between both sides was harmonious and there was a desire to communicate. This was normal. Firstly, the relationship between the Radiance Guild and the Super Gods team was passable. There were no conflicts between them. The strongest of the 3 teams was the Giant Gods team. Just like how Shu and Wu had joined forces to resist Wei during the 3 Kingdoms era, the Radiance team and the White Phoenix team were natural allies. Qin Bing smiled and said, I was the first to come in. The team gave me the first set of ghost spirit disguise to scout the area. The other team members are still outside collecting ghost spirit fragments. Bai Xiaowen understood. No wonder Qin Bing came in earlier than them. Then, is it the same for the Giant Gods Guild? I met Yan Bo, an assassin from the Giant Gods team. He is very strong, said Qin Bing. However, we have all signed the agreement. There is no need to remind you. Otherwise, it would be quite a headache to be constantly worried about Yan Bo's ambush in this godforsaken place. Team Qin came in first. Did you discover any secrets? Bai Xiaowen asked. Qin Bing smiled and said, You can't get information out of me. Let's exchange information, one for the other. How about it? Okay. When we entered the village, we accidentally obtained a remnant diary page. Bai Xiaowen stared at Qin Bing's expression and said slowly, The diary wrote. Stop. Was it written by a little girl? About her family being sent to the countryside? Qin Bing smiled and said, I know about this too. It doesn't count. Did you get any other remnant diary pages? There is one page, Bai Xiaowen said. I also found a page. Qin Bing took out a remnant page and the 2 of them read it together. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 829. June 3rd, the weather turned from cloudy to cloudy. I flipped to the page about the new year. That was the most unforgettable New Year's Eve in my childhood. Every household started to buy New Year's goods. Pigs could be heard at the entrance of the village every few days. But my house was cold and cheerless. My family relied on my second sister to earn work points, but she still had to take time to go home and help my mother go to the toilet. Sometimes, when my mother pooped her pants, she didn't mind the stench. But she often went home, so her work points were deducted a lot. She didn't even get enough rice and firewood for the new year. I was hungry and greedy. When I walked on the road, it was like the shadow of pork was swaying in front of my eyes. That day, I passed by village chief Lu Fu's house in a daze. His house didn't lock the door. I saw the meat hanging under the eaves at first glance. I was so greedy that I drooled. I didn't know what I was thinking at that time. I moved a small stool and stood on tiptoe. I just wanted to smell it. My memory of what happened after that is a little blurry. I was dragged home by the ear. Someone scolded me for being a thief. Second sister slapped me twice. I cried until I didn't know where I was. Someone hugged me in their arms. The next day, village chief Lu Fu's wife came to my house and sent the stuffed buns for the new year. She even mobilized many of the women in the village to help my family make buns for the new year. That lame son of Lu Fu was grinning from ear to ear, and his 2 yellow spots of front teeth were exposed. This page of the diary was relatively long. After Bai Xiaowen finished reading it, he kept thinking silently. On the other side, Qin Bing also finished reading the page Bai Xiaowen gave him and said, "Bro, your diary only has half a page. There isn't even a date." Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "It doesn't matter if it's half a page or an entire page. The information recorded is the most important. My half a page has a lot of key people. The amount of information is no less than Captain Qin's page." Qin Bing shook his head. "I always feel like I'm at a disadvantage." Cold sweat appeared on the backs of the 5 members of the White Phoenix team. Qin Bing, the captain of the Radiance team, was actually maliciously acting cute. "Actually, the date isn't important. The first page of the diary that we share has already indicated that this is a reminiscence diary. It was written by the youngest daughter of the Zhou family after she grew up," Bai Xiaowen said. "All right. Did you discover anything after reading these pages?" Qin Bing asked. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. "We don't have enough information. We need to collect other pages. Does Captain Qin have any extra pages?" Qin Bing shook his head. "No. There's not even one left." "All right, let's split up and search. If we have the chance to meet again, we can exchange information," Bai Xiaowen said. Qin Bing chuckled, nodded, and slipped away. In the team channel, Li Shi said, "I think he must have other pages. This person is dishonest. Even if he has it, there's no reason for him to take it out for no reason." Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "Also, I have some reservations about him. After all, we have a cooperative and competitive relationship. What do you think? Where should we go next to find the diary pages?" Qiao Rui asked. Bai Xiaowen said in the team channel, "Let's analyze the diary page that Qin Bing just shared. It shouldn't be connected to the diary pages that we have. There must be other missing pages in between. One of the pieces of evidence is that the eldest son of the Zhou family, Zhou Bin, is missing. The family is actually supported by the second sister of the Zhou family. Yes, it's clearly written in the earlier pages that the second sister was still young and couldn't earn work points. From this, it seems that the time span of this diary page is relatively long," Qiao Rui said. "What do you think of the village chief, Lu Fu?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "He seems all right. Taking care of a poor family at the end of the year." Li Shi frowned. "But there's always a feeling of discomfort. This Lu Fu can't be the villain, right? This feeling of discomfort comes from the emotions of the diary author. When she described it, she didn't have much respect for Lu Fu's wife and son. Instead, she faintly disliked them," Bai Xiaowen analyzed. "Normally, for someone who helped the family, she would call them Madame Lu or something like that, right? This Lu Fu's wife feels a little cold. Moreover, she specifically wrote about Lu Fu's crippled son and directly exposed his shortcomings. The feeling of disgust will automatically cause the reader to put themselves in her shoes. Qiao Rui said, also, it seems a little overzealous. It's understandable that she sent some rice and noodles, but it's too much to ask the other villagers in the village to help the Zhou family celebrate the new year. It doesn't feel right. Yes, in my opinion, Lu Fu's family is definitely not kind, Bai Xiaowen said. At the time, the author, Zhou Xiaoduo, was young and very greedy. She went to their house to eat raw meat. Whether she ate it or not, the Lu family's reaction was very intense. The person who pulled Zhou Xiaoduo's ear all the way to the Zhou family to complain and even called her a thief child should be someone from the Lu family, right? It's hard to imagine that such a family would be so warm-hearted and change their attitude the next day. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen said, currently, I can think of 3 possibilities. First, the Zhou family had some special background that Lu Fu suddenly found out about and deliberately came to curry favor with. Second, some leader went to the countryside for an inspection. Lu Fu wanted to create a village spirit of unity and friendship in front of the leader. His teammates all fell into deep thought. Bai Xiaowen said, but these 2 possibilities are relatively small. Based on Zhou Xiaoduo's disgust towards the Lu family, it's more likely to be the last possibility. What? Li Shi asked. In-laws. Bai Xiaowen took a deep breath and got to the point. If I'm not wrong, the second sister of the Zhou family might be the ghost bride. Ah. Li Shi reacted. You're saying that the second sister of the Zhou family agreed to marry Lu Fu's son. That's why the Lu family was so eager to help, Bai Xiaowen nodded. From the description, Lu Fu's son was disabled and ugly. Even if his father was the village chief, it was difficult for such a young man to find a wife in the village at that time, let alone a wife as beautiful as the second sister of the Zhou family. Qiao Rui and the others nodded slowly. Li Shi muttered, how do you know she's beautiful? You're focusing on the wrong thing. Bai Xiaowen smiled. Since the eldest son of the Zhou family, Zhou Bin, could attract Huairong's attention, we know that the Zhou family's genes are good. How bad can the second sister be? If that's the case, we can follow the wedding procession and find the Zhou family. Qiao Rui's eyes lit up. Since the diary was written by Zhou Xiaoduo, the Zhou family should have more pages. Bai Xiaowen smiled and nodded. This was also his idea and also something he had kept from Qin Bing. Chapter 830. The wedding procession walked forward with gongs and drums, but no one spoke. The atmosphere was solemn, as if they were in a mourning hall. Behind them, there were many ghostly spectators who followed silently. Unlike the bustling crowd, these ghostly spectators were silent, as if they were conducting some kind of ceremony. The 5 members of the White Phoenix squad followed at the back of the crowd. Bai Xiaowen even activated his mental scan to sense the surroundings. Qin Bing was not nearby. Of course, it was also possible that he was in a high-priority state of invisibility and could not be detected. Liujia village was not big. The wedding procession soon arrived at their destination, a threshing field. There were 3 to 5 households at the side of the threshing field. Bai Xiaowen noticed that this was the corner of the village, which was also suitable for the Zhou family's status as an outsider. In the wedding procession, a tall and thin villager with the appearance of an old gentleman could be vaguely seen. He floated forward and shouted loudly, "The auspicious hour has arrived. Bride, enter the sedan." The ghostly wedding procession parted in the middle. A simple red sedan was carried by 4 able-bodied villagers to the door of one of the households. Bai Xiaowen used his insight to observe and found that both the old gentleman and the villagers carrying the sedan were under the protection of the white stone. They could not be targeted, which meant that they could not be detected. Well, there was no way to cause trouble now. They could only watch the show. The villagers carrying the sedan shouted a few times, but the door was tightly shut. No one responded. The old gentleman in the lead said loudly, "The auspicious hour cannot be delayed. Invite the bride out." At the front of the wedding procession, there were two middle-aged women holding wedding procession and leave signs. They were dressed in red and had fat bodies. When they heard the order, they immediately rushed over, like two puffs of smoke drifting into the tightly shut door. Then, the two women in red floated out first. Behind them was a figure dressed in a red wedding dress with a red veil on her head. Behind them were two women. The four of them seemed to be escorting the bride into the sedan. The bride looks like she can't move. Is she tied up? Li Shi's eyes were sharp. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. Upon closer inspection, the bride's walking posture was indeed strange. Their legs were motionless and they were floating on the ground. This was a common trait shared by all the villagers of Huiqing village, so there was no need to talk about it. However, the bride's arms were tightly attached to her body. No matter how she walked, her arms did not sway at all. It looked as if there was an invisible rope binding her. It seems that the bride is the second sister of the Zhou family. She has a good figure. Li Shi laughed. What do we do now? Qiao Rui asked. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. We can't make a move yet. There are still many things that I don't understand. For example, this wedding scene. Does it happen every day, or does it happen on the day we enter? If it was the latter, it would be too much of a coincidence. If it's the former, then it's even harder to understand. In the end, Bai Xiaowen decided to wait and see. After all, the secret of the serene white stone had not been unraveled, and the group did not have the ability to kill these ghosts. The bride was dragged into the bridal sedan, and the bridal procession disappeared at the intersection. Let's go to the Zhou family and look for the remnant diary pages. Bai Xiaowen led his teammates and climbed over the wall of the bride's house. The courtyard was empty except for a few ridges. It was probably where the Zhou family planted their own vegetables, but it had long since been abandoned. There was an abandoned well next to the ridges, and behind the well was an old stone mill. Bai Xiaowen frowned slightly. Is this the Zhou family? It doesn't seem like it. It's hard to imagine that an outsider who was sent here would have something like a stone mill. His teammates had already split up to search the courtyard, but they did not find any remnant diary pages. Suddenly, Qiao Rui said, Captain, come and take a look. There's something wrong here. Bai Xiaowen walked over. There were two deep stains on the stone mill, as if they were deeply embedded in the stone. Even after a long time, there was no way to remove them. More importantly, when he got close to the stone mill, he could smell a strong smell of blood. These should be blood stains, but they've already dried up to this extent. There's still such a strong smell of blood. It's really not normal. Bai Xiaowen frowned. He had also seen blood stains between the stone mill and the abandoned well, but the blood clots were smaller. Bai Xiaowen took a few steps back, looked around, and said, back then, the second sister of the Zhou family was probably forcefully pulled out of the house. She was really stubborn. First, she hit the stone mill. She didn't die, and then she jumped into the well. I think there should be something in the well. We should go down and take a look. Li Shi shrunk his head, and even Qiao Rui's face turned pale. Hansu said, I'll go. No need. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand, and Kits, dressed in aristocratic attire, appeared. Kits, go down and take a look. Bai Xiaowen had chosen a fixed airdrop, and the target was the well. Kits? The sound of coughing came from the well, and Kit's voice rang out. Boss, what are you doing? It's all dust in here. Did you find anything? Bai Xiaowen asked. Nothing at all, Kit said. Bai Xiaowen opened Kit's shared vision and scanned the well. He really couldn't find anything. Strange, Bai Xiaowen frowned and thought. Since the ghost bride had jumped into the well, then there should be something strange in the well. Kits turned into a swarm of bats and flew out of the abandoned well. He patted the dust off his body. Speaking of strange, it seems a bit cold down there. But I'm a vampire. This little difference in temperature really doesn't make much of a difference. Maybe it's because you're a vampire and not a living person. Bai Xiaowen's eyes suddenly lit up. It seems I can't be lazy and use my summoned creatures to scout the way. I'll go down and take a look myself. Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures were basically all of the undead, and the Wrath Claw was a wild beast. It would be very difficult for them to find anything strange in the well. Xiaowen, be careful, Li Shi said. Yes, this well is the only strange thing in the courtyard. There are no other clues. Shi, you and Sister Qiao go to the Zhou family's house and look around. Old Han, you stay at the well and guard it for me. After Bai Xiaowen finished speaking, he jumped into the well. The wind whistled. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, he still hadn't hit the ground. Bai Xiaowen had a bad feeling. When Kits had jumped into the well, he'd fallen to the bottom. The abandoned well was at most 3 to 5 meters deep. But now, it seemed like it couldn't even reach 30 to 50 meters. Bai Xiaowen danced around, trying to grab the walls of the well in the air, but he grabbed nothing. I won't fall to my death, right? Bai Xiaowen's fingers touched the town portal scroll. At the same time, he tried to open his eyes and look down. The bottom was shrouded in a thick fog, like a monster with its mouth wide open. He couldn't see clearly. Suddenly, Bai Xiaowen's body froze. He felt his feet touch the ground, but he didn't feel the pain of falling from a high altitude. An obvious feeling of weightlessness and dislocation came over him. The next moment, Bai Xiaowen was standing in a courtyard, looking confused. The familiar stone mill, the familiar well, and the familiar mud wall. This is clearly the Zhou family's courtyard. Just now, I had the illusion of heaven and earth being turned upside down. It's like I've entered a mirror world, and my head is upside down. So, in terms of space, this courtyard shouldn't be Han Su's courtyard. Bai Xiaowen sighed. Fortunately, he was brave and had good judgment. If it had been someone else, they probably wouldn't have been able to recover for a long time. In this mirror dimension, the sky was also gray and overcast. Suddenly, the sound of gongs and drums could be heard from afar. Bai Xiaowen's expression changed. No way, there's also a bridal escort team here? Different from the previous bridal escort team, Bai Xiaowen was in the courtyard this time, so he could see the situation in the bride's house. Following the shout of the auspicious time has arrived, 2 stout women pushed open the courtyard door and came in. The door in the house was also opened. The bride, wearing a red wedding dress, was tied up with ropes. 2 stout women also pushed her out. Huai Yurong, you don't know how lucky you are. How many girls in the Lu family village want to marry to Lu? After you marry into the family, you won't have to worry about food and drink. You won't have to work in the field to earn work points. You can enjoy leisure. Under the red veil, a voice sounded. I know. Can you untie me? Oh, that won't do. What if you try to kill yourself again? What should we do? I won't. I've thought it through. Besides, can the Lu family afford to be tied into the sedan by force? That's true. All right, since Yurong has thought it through, untie her and let her marry into the family peacefully. Bai Xiaowen seemed to be an invisible person. Those stout women ignored him. When he reached out to touch, he only touched the air. The other party was just an illusion. Soon, the rope was untied. The bride in red pulled down the red veil, revealing a beautiful face with a heroic spirit. She said sternly, even if I, Huai Yurong, become a ghost, I will not marry into the Lu family. The 4 women were stunned. Before they could say anything, Huai Yurong rushed to the stone mill. There was a woman standing on the road. When she saw Huai Yurong rushing fiercely, she subconsciously dodged. Suddenly, with a buzzing sound, the stone mill trembled. Huai Yurong's head was dripping with blood. 2 pieces of blood splattered on the stone mill. The bridal escort team outside the courtyard seemed to have heard the noise. Immediately, some people followed in. The leader, a middle-aged man wearing a felt hat, said anxiously, What? Why is there blood? The 3 women surrounded Huai Yurong. They were all frightened. Husband, this Huai Yurong said she had thought it through, so I untied the rope. Who would have thought that she would knock her head over? The last woman, the wife of the village chief Lu Fu, said in fear. Fortunately, no one died. You see, how about we just forget about this matter? The man in the felt hat was slightly stunned. He repeated, not dead, right? His face quickly returned to normal. He snorted, she's not dead, right? Who are you trying to scare? Let me tell you, Huai Yurong. Today you must marry into the Lu family. If you're alive, you're a member of the Lu family. If you're dead, you're a ghost of the Lu family. Take her away. Huai Yurong punched and kicked. The stout women were thrown to the side. As the bridal escort team rushed over, Huai Yurong suddenly screamed and rushed over. She jumped into the well. Chapter 831. The bride jumped into the well. Once the news came out, the wedding procession in Liujia village immediately dispersed. Everyone was afraid of being held responsible. Lu Fu discussed with the old man who was responsible for calling the door. From his address, Bai Xiaowen knew that he was Lu Fu's fourth uncle. Everyone in the village called him Master Lu Si. After discussing, they decided to gather the villagers to testify that Huai Yurong committed suicide by jumping into the well. It had nothing to do with the Lu family. Anyway, the old master of the Hua family had passed away. As an outsider, there was no one left in the Hua family. No one would reverse the verdict for Huai Yurong. A group of people shoveled soil and filled up the well. Bai Xiaowen, as a bystander, watched this scene quietly. When the Lu family left and night fell, the sealed well suddenly moved. The soil loosened, and a woman in a red wedding dress floated out. It was Huai Yurong. There were still bloodstains on her forehead. Her whole body was soaked. Her skin was slightly swollen. Under her eyelids, there were 2 bloodstains. There was no doubt that Huai Yurong had turned into a ghost. Bai Xiaowen did not know whether it was an illusion or not, but he saw a horrible smile on Huai Yurong's face. He instantly understood that the Lu family's kidnapping of the bride was just the beginning. Huai Yurong, who had turned into an evil ghost, had officially started her revenge on the villagers of Liujia village. What made Bai Xiaowen's hair stand on end was that Huai Yurong was looking in his direction, and that gaze was definitely able to see his existence. However, Huai Yurong did not stay for long. She floated out of the courtyard. The scenery around him changed. When the scenery was fixed, Bai Xiaowen found himself in a dry well. Above him was the mouth of the well, about 3 to 5 meters high. Under his feet was soft sand. At the mouth of the well, old Han's voice came, "Captain, are you there?" "I'm here." Bai Xiaowen answered. There was a gasp. Li Shi said hurriedly, "Xiaowen, you're so scary. You disappeared for so long." Bai Xiaowen said, "There was an accident. Come out now, we've encountered something strange in the house too." "We need your help," Qiao Rui said. Bai Xiaowen agreed. Just as he was about to jump up, he suddenly saw a corner of red cloth buried in the sand. He pulled out the red cloth and found that it was a dirty and tattered red veil. "Huai Yurong's red veil is here, but her bones are not." Bai Xiaowen squatted down and rummaged through the sand. He did not find anything else, so he shook his head in disappointment and chose to go up the well. A few of his teammates surrounded him, but their expressions were not good. Bai Xiaowen said, "I entered a mirror dimension under the well. It should be an illusion. I replayed the process of the wedding day of the Lu family and made a lot of discoveries. My previous speculation was wrong." The person who became the ghost bride was not the second sister of the Zhou family, but Huai Yurong, who was mentioned at the beginning of the diary. This is not the Zhou family, but the Hua family. Everyone was a little surprised, but they quickly accepted this fact. Then, Qiao Rui began to explain. "Shui and I were in the house, and we saw a coffin. The coffin was nailed shut with a 7-inch nail. I tried to open the coffin, but a ghost appeared and attacked us. Then, we escaped. We wanted to discuss this with you, but Han Su said that you disappeared after going down the well. We could only wait." Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. Is that ghost very powerful? You couldn't even defeat it? The ghost was protected by the white stone, so it was immune to damage, Qiao Rui said. Although the moment it attacked, it would no longer be immune to damage, but the ghost was very strong. Even Shui couldn't seize that moment of opportunity. Let's go take a look. Bai Xiaowen led his teammates to the door of the house and pushed it open. A gust of cold wind blew. The house was empty except for a red coffin in the middle. As Qiao Rui said, it was nailed shut with a large nail. A white figure appeared. It was an old man with silver-white hair and a beard. However, his eyes were white, and he didn't look very kind. The old man roared and rushed over. Li Shi rushed forward and attacked with both swords. However, when the swords hit the old man, they sliced through the air and didn't cause any damage. The old man stepped to the side and kicked Li Shi's chin. Li Shi didn't have time to change his move, so Qiao Rui shot out a shattering scale. However, the old man seemed to have sensed it. His foot paused slightly, and he stopped attacking. The shattering scale's sonic arrow missed again. With a dull thud, the old man raised his leg and kicked out like a spring. Li Shi was kicked to the ground. This old ghost is very powerful, but it seems like he can't leave this house. Li Shi got up and said. Fortunately, the old man stopped attacking midway and didn't have enough strength. She wasn't seriously injured and didn't lose much HP, Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. This old man was much more powerful than the host ghosts they encountered outside the village. He seemed to be able to use the white stone protection state consciously. Moreover, he was agile. He seemed to be a martial artist. Seeing the old man rushing over again, Han Su was about to raise his shield. Suddenly, Bai Xiaowen opened his mouth. Hua Yurong. These 3 words seemed to have some kind of magical power. The moment they were shouted, the old man's attack paused, and the coffin that was sealed by the 7-inch long nail gave off a slight tremor, as if something was slapping on it from inside. Bai Xiaowen sighed. It seemed that Hua Yurong was the key to communication. He continued, "We're here to help you. Is there any way we can communicate?" The coffin stopped shaking. The upper half of a figure wearing a red wedding dress appeared on the coffin. It was Hua Yurong. It looked as if she had just sat up from her coffin. Hua Yurong stared at the 5 members of the White Phoenix team. Beneath her eyes were traces of blood and tears. "How can I help you?" Bai Xiaowen braced himself and asked. There was no reply. Qiao Rui said, "Let me try." As a soul whisperer, Qiao Rui had the ability to communicate with ghosts. However, the ghosts of Huaiwang village rejected him, so he couldn't communicate with them. Now that the ghost bride, Hua Yurong, seemed to have the desire to communicate, Qiao Rui's ability could be put to good use. Qiao Rui closed his eyes slightly. He seemed to be using his mind to activate Soul Whisperer to communicate with Hua Yurong. Hua Yurong suddenly raised her hand. A gust of ghostly fog surged and condensed into Lu Fu's shadow. Her long ghostly claws tore Lu Fu's shadow apart. Then, another gust of ghostly fog condensed into Lu Xi's shadow. Hua Yurong obviously hated Lu Xi's shadow. Her eyes were bloodshot. She waved her ghostly claws and opened her mouth to bite Lu Xi. It seemed like she wouldn't stop until she ate Lu Xi. A notification came from the spirit realm. Special side mission, Serene White Stone, has been updated. Optional mission A, kill the ghost matchmaker Lu Xi and the evil ghost Lu Fu and obtain the Serene White Stone, fragment. Optional mission B, kill the ghost bride Hua Yurong and the evil ghost Old Master Hua and obtain the Serene White Stone, fragment. Chapter 832. Qiao Rui's eyes were still closed as he maintained communication with the ghost bride, Hua Yurong. At the same time, she spoke rapidly, "Hurry up and make your decision. Hua Yurong is waiting for my response." Yes or no, without a doubt, choosing yes meant that they were on Hua Yurong's side. If they chose no, the consequences were hard to predict. Hua Yurong might turn hostile and attack them, or she might even chase them away. Bai Xiaowen said without hesitation, "Agree with her." Qiao Rui let out a long sigh of relief. His tense nerves relaxed. On the other side, Hua Yurong's attitude towards the group seemed to have softened. However, her face was too scary. Even her smile was enough to make people's hearts jump. Bai Xiaowen quickly said in the team channel, "The Lu family is a big family in the village. If we choose the A route, it means that we are on the opposite side of the Lu family village's ghosts. Although the difficulty is high, with so many ghosts to kill, it means that our profits will increase greatly." Li Shi said, "The ghosts of the Lu family village are too annoying. They won't even let go of the dead." "I also agree with the A route," Han Su said, "but the ghosts here are immune to damage. How do we deal with them?" Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "Don't worry. This immunity comes from the ghostly white stone. Since Hua Yurong has a fragment of the ghostly white stone on her, there must be a way to deal with it. Don't forget, this is only a B-rank guild mission. It has been tested by the psionic particles. The ghosts of Huaiwang village had the protection of the ghostly white stone status. It could be understood as a rule that forced them to solve the riddle. The awakened ones had to solve the riddle and find out the true identity of the ghost bride. They had to communicate with her before they could fight to their heart's content in this land of ghosts. Of course, the ghost matchmaker, Master Lu Si, should have a corresponding trigger for the quest. It was most likely to be related to the evil ghost, Lu Fu. But no matter which side they chose, they had to solve the riddle and have a deeper understanding of the history of Huaiwang village. On the other side, Qiao Rui was still communicating with Hua Yurong. She tilted her head to look at Bai Xiaowen with a hint of surprise and admiration in her eyes. She said, "Hua Yurong just told me that she can help us solve the interference of the white stones on Lu Fu and the others. Your guess is right. However, this ritual requires our blood." "Everyone?" Qiao Rui nodded. "Alright, I'll go first." Bai Xiaowen followed the instructions and walked over to stand beside the big red coffin. Hua Yurong's left claw pinched Bai Xiaowen's wrist. "Spirit Realm Rule Notification, Ghost Bride Hua Yurong is about to use the blood curse seal on you. Do you agree?" "Agreed." If it weren't for the notes he had seen along the way and the puzzle-solving process in the mirror space, Bai Xiaowen might have been worried. But after understanding the inside story, Bai Xiaowen knew that Hua Yurong could be trusted, at least in dealing with the Lu family. With Bai Xiaowen's agreement, his blood flowed faster and the veins on the back of his hand popped out. Hua Yurong's other claw slashed with her sharp nails and a stream of blood spurted out. Hua Yurong opened her mouth and swallowed it. After taking the blood, Hua Yurong's ghost claw brushed Bai Xiaowen's wrist and the wound healed immediately. However, at the spot where the blood was taken, there was a strange mark of a human face. This process is a bit strange. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and activated insight on the mark on the back of his hand. "Blood curse, Ghost Bride, you are now a member of Huaiwang village. If you cannot fulfill the wish of the Ghost Bride, you will bear her curse and stay here forever." After sharing the effect of the blood curse in the party channel, Li Shi mumbled, "This blood curse, why does it feel like a negative status?" Bai Xiaowen said, "Hua Yurong is an evil ghost filled with resentment. It is impossible for her to trust strangers like us. Only a curse in the form of a contract can make her feel at ease. Furthermore, the first sentence, 'You are now a member of Huaiwang village,' is already a positive effect. This means that we can attack the ghosts of Huaiwang village. Then if we can't achieve our goal, won't we be trapped in this treasure space forever?" Li Shi asked. Qiao Rui added, "Yes, there are 2 other A-class teams. If they choose the Ghost Matchmaker's quest line and obtain the final victory, won't we be doomed?" Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, "No, if they win the other quest line, it means that Hua Yurong and Elder Hua will be eliminated. Then, the curse on us will lose its effect." Due to their trust in Bai Xiaowen, his teammates stepped forward and accepted Hua Yurong's blood curse. Qiao Rui said, "Hua Yurong wants us to destroy tomorrow's Minghan ceremony. She doesn't want to endure this kind of torture anymore." "Minghan ceremony? Hasn't it already been held?" Li Shi asked. Bai Xiaowen said thoughtfully, "Looks like the Minghan ceremony isn't just a one-time event. It's something that happens every day. I knew it couldn't be so coincidental that we would run into the Minghan ceremony on the day we came in. Then, tomorrow, the wedding procession will come again and take away the ghost bride, Hua Yurong. At the time, we saw a ghost bride being tied onto the sedan chair. Then, what is this Hua Yurong? Li Shi felt like his brain cells were not enough. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. I don't understand it either. However, the Lu family must have a special reason for doing this. The 5 of them left the Hua family. After they left, Li Shi said with a smile, Xiaowen, I didn't expect you to make a mistake. The ghost bride isn't the second sister of the Zhou family, it's Hua Yurong. You didn't expect this, did you? Bai Xiaowen said, yes, I didn't expect this. It looks like there are some twists and turns. We can go next door to the Hua family to search. We should be able to find the diary pages there and understand more. Of course, for us, the quest line is clear, so there's no need for this step. Next door to the Hua family. Yes, one of the diary pages mentioned that the Zhou family is next door to the Hua family, Li Shi said. In the end, the 5 of them went to the Zhou family first. Sure enough, they found 2 pages of the diary among the Zhou family members. After reading these 2 pages, the 5 of them understood. It turned out that the reason Zhou Bin left home was because the college entrance exam was reinstated. He was admitted to university, so the burden of the family fell on the second sister of the Zhou family. Zhou Xiaoduo and the disabled Mrs. Zhou were burdens, so the Zhou family was in a difficult situation. The second sister had to promise to marry Lu Fu's crippled son. Zhou Bin came home during the winter vacation and made a scene, but it was useless. He could only acquiesce to this fact. Later, there was a large-scale rehabilitation. Zhou Bin used his relationship with the father of his girlfriend in the provincial capital to rehabilitate the Zhou family and get the opportunity to return to the city. However, the second sister of the Zhou family couldn't return to the city because she was married to Lu Fu's son. Zhou Bin and the second sister wanted to force a divorce and return to the city, but Lu Fu had been operating in Liujia village for many years. Master Lu Si gathered all the men in the Lu family and gave Zhou Bin a good beating. Hua Yurong came to save the day. Somehow, Hua Yurong replaced the second sister to marry Lu Fu's son. According to Zhou Bin, this was called a temporary measure. However, Zhou Xiaoduo never saw Hua Yurong again. The diary stopped there. Li Shi said sympathetically, so this is how Hua Yurong became a scapegoat. She must be waiting for Zhou Bin to pick her up. No wonder she became an evil ghost after her death. Her hatred is too deep. But her obsession, does it have nothing to do with Zhou Bin? Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and thought for a second. He said, something must have happened after that, which caused Hua Yurong's hatred for Lu Si and Lu Fu to far exceed her admiration and hatred for Zhou Bin. But I don't know what happened exactly. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and put the diary away. He said, the story of a silly girl and a heartless man, let's not talk about it. Now, it's time to free Hua Yurong. Hua Yurong asked us to destroy the ghost wedding ceremony. Should we wait until the next day, when the wedding procession arrives? Qiao Rui asked. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, no need to wait. If the Lu family wants to hold a ghost wedding, they need a ghost matchmaker and a groom. We'll kill Lu Fu and his son and Lu Si directly. This is the most direct and time-saving way. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen said, don't forget that we're not a single team. There are 2 other teams competing with us. Our advantage is very small now, so we have to act fast. I've prepared a plan for this. Bai Xiaowen then explained his plan to his teammates. In the end, Han Su and Qiao Rui stayed with the Hua family while Bai Xiaowen brought Li Shi and Cecilia to the village chief, Lu Fu's house. Perhaps it was time for the ghosts to rest. Along the way, it was quiet. Not a single ghost could be seen, and the doors of every house were tightly shut. Bai Xiaowen and the other 2 arrived at Lu Fu's house. Just as they were about to climb over the wall, the door suddenly opened with a creak. Come in. I've been waiting for you for a long time. A slightly old voice sounded from behind the door. In the dusk, two ghostly flames lit up in the Lu family's courtyard. They were two skull lanterns. Under the dim glow of the ghostly flames, Lu Fu and Lu Si stood side by side. The flickering flames made their already pale faces look even more sinister. Bai Xiaowen hesitated for a moment and turned back to look. Lu Si, who had just spoken, coughed. "Since you're here, don't even think about leaving." At the intersection, in the alley, under the eaves, behind the walls, ghostly shadows floated out and blocked Bai Xiaowen and the other two's escape route. These shadows were all young, masculine ghosts. They stared at Bai Xiaowen and the other two expressionlessly. Bai Xiaowen cocked his head. "You knew we were here?" Lu Si said, "The ghosts of Huaiwang village are all under my control. You weren't originally ghosts here, so I didn't notice. But now that you're under Huairong's blood curse, I'll sense you if you're within 100 feet of me." After a pause, Lu Si picked up the white jade hanging from his chest and said leisurely, "After all, I'm the owner of this white jade." Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. "Are you a human or a ghost?" The wrinkles on Lu Si's face smoothed out. He smiled. "Of course I'm a human. I'm probably the last living person in Huaiwang village. But you should know that after staying in this godforsaken place for so long, there's no difference between a human and a ghost." "Old man, you don't speak like an old man from a village," Bai Xiaowen said. Lu Si waved his hand. "Let me be arrogant, but I've studied feng shui for half my life. I've walked more bridges than you have roads. Young man, you're in big trouble. Don't you know how to repent?" Lu Si said, "When Huairong became an evil ghost, she used the white jade given to her by old man Hua to imprison the entire village. Everyone in the village became ghosts with her. If I hadn't set up a trap and taken away half of the white jade, these innocent villagers would never have been able to reincarnate. You helped her, but in the end, you harmed yourself. What you did was wrong," Bai Xiaowen said. "You stole the bride and caused her to jump into the well. You deserve to be punished. And now you're carrying out ghost marriages every day. You've gone too far." Elder Lu Si shook his head. "The Minghan ceremony is only to dispel Huairong's resentment. She is a specter who died a wrongful death. Only by dispelling her resentment and taking back the remaining half of the white stone will I be able to free the souls of these innocent villagers. The ghost marriage ceremony is carried out once a day. It's like reeling silk from a cocoon. Originally, Huairong's resentment was almost gone. She would have succeeded in a few months. Who knew that foreigners like you would come and mess things up?" Bai Xiaowen sneered. "Dispelling resentment? How can you repeat the bride kidnapping over and over again? I think you're trying to tame Huairong by tearing open the scars in her heart again and again. It's not impossible to tame her." Lu Si nodded. "Young man, do you know the consequences of being cursed by Huairong? You won't be able to escape for the rest of your life. You'll be at Huairong's mercy. Now I'm giving you a chance. Help me set things right. After this, I'll help you break the curse. What do you think?" Seeing Bai Xiaowen shake his head, Lu Si snorted and looked at Li Shui and Cecilia. "Your companion has been possessed. I'm the only one who can save you now." Li Shui glanced at Bai Xiaowen. He had to admit that the process of Huairong being cursed and the description of the curse were both strange and terrifying. They were far less reliable than Lu Si. Did we really choose the wrong side? Li Shui thought and looked at Bai Xiaowen. Seeing the latter's indifferent expression, Li Shui's doubts dissipated. Why would I have such a thought? Xiaowen can't be wrong. Li Shui thought. Cecilia also trusted Bai Xiaowen very much. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "Old Mr. Lu, don't waste your energy. If I'm not wrong, your spiritual suggestion can only magnify the doubts in others' hearts and make them waver. However, if we don't have any seeds of doubt in our hearts, no matter how strong your spiritual suggestion is, it's useless." Before Bai Xiaowen could finish, Lu Si's expression changed and he roared, "Tear him apart." Chapter 833. Tens of thousands of ghosts wailed in unison. Accompanied by countless screams, the ghosts pounced on them one by one. Bai Xiaowen scanned the area with insight. Most of the ghosts here were normal, called soulless villagers. Only a few were obviously stronger and were high-level elites. Cursed Ghost, Elite Level 8, Race, Demon/Ghost Race, Attributes, STR12, DX23, Constitution 35, Spirit 64, Skill 1, Grudge, Curse an enemy. Target must pass a spirit check or hallucinate. Skill 2, Evil Ghost's Touch, Passive. Cursed Ghost's normal attacks cannot be blocked or parried. Additional magic damage is 1/5 times of spirit. Skill 3, Possession, Cursed Ghost grabs the target from behind. Target must pass a spirit check, or movement speed will be reduced by 30% and will enter a periodic imprisonment effect. Skill 4, Talisman Master's Seal LV2, gain 300 extra HP. Compared to high-level elite cursed ghosts, the soulless villagers were much weaker. However, they also had the passive skill Evil Ghost's Touch, which ignored blocking and parrying. A hit would cause magic damage, so they could only rely on dodging. In large numbers, they were not to be underestimated. Shi, cooperate with Butcher to clean up the small fries. Leave the elite monsters to me, Bai Xiaowen said. Li Shi activated Lord's Wrath. 2 swords appeared and crashed into the group of ghosts like a whirlwind. She had been holding back for a long time. Now that the puzzle was solved, she could finally fight to her heart's content. Whoosh! 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 Li Shi executed the hidden sky sword technique. Every strike was sure to kill a normal ghost. Li Shi's 2 passive skills were quickly stacked. The duration of Lord's Wrath was also correspondingly extended. During this period, Li Shi's movement speed was greatly increased. Compared to these floating villagers, she was more like a ghost. Butcher acted as a solid meat shield and crowd control. After Rotten Toxin was activated, Li Shi could enjoy the protection of Rotten Toxin as long as she hid within Butcher's melee range. The normal ghost villagers would be slowed down when they charged over. In addition, their agility would be suppressed, so they couldn't touch Li Shi at all. A curse-bound ghost floated behind Li Shi and opened its arms in an attempt to capture him. The curse-bound ghost's capture judgment was very special. It was determined by one's spirit. Bang! With a gunshot, the curse-bound ghost howled and retreated. The body condensed by the ghost fog shook. The muzzle of Bai Xiaowen's Desert Eagle was emitting green smoke. His first shot didn't kill the cursed ghost, which was a little strange. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that the cursed ghost didn't seem to have any vital points, and its HP was as high as 650. Bai Xiaowen didn't have the Ring of Pain or Blood Rage to increase his damage, so it was unrealistic to kill it in one shot. However, there was still Cecilia to deal damage. After the previous league matches and pre-match training, she and Bai Xiaowen were very familiar with each other. They specifically chose targets that were already injured because Bai Xiaowen's attack would trigger the true damage of the Blood Essence Stone. It had to be said that professional archers were different. Cecilia's arrows whistled out, and her speed was much faster than Bai Xiaowen's Desert Eagle's continuous shooting mode. The unlucky curse-bound ghost's remaining HP was emptied by 2 consecutive arrows. It turned into light and dissipated, leaving behind a coarse sphere surrounded by gray fog. It seemed to be weightless as it floated in the air. As an elite creature, it was normal that the curse-bound ghost didn't drop a treasure chest after being attacked by 2 hero classes. However, this was the treasure space, not the spiritual world. After the curse-bound ghost died, there were still materials that dropped. The floating sphere surrounded by gray fog looked extraordinary. However, since they were in the middle of a battle, Bai Xiaowen didn't have time to pick it up. He could only continue to kill elite ghosts with his gun. When he fought alongside Cecilia, the passive effect of her skill Arrow Array would also be used on Bai Xiaowen. It increased Bai Xiaowen's attack speed and slightly increased her damage output. As more and more ghosts rushed over, the pressure on Bai Xiaowen and the other two gradually increased. After all, they were fighting against the evil ghosts of the entire village. Lu Si must have predicted that Bai Xiaowen would come, so he had set up an ambush of ghost villagers near the house in advance. As time passed, the ghost villagers scattered in every house would swarm toward the battlefield under Lu Si's control. Bai Xiaowen raised his hand and summoned an army of creatures. Under Bai Xiaowen's instructions, Li Shi activated the demonic ghost mask. He ignored the butcher's cover and rushed directly into the crowd of ghosts. She seemed to have entered a certain state. She repeatedly used the subtle moves of the Tiansong sword technique. Unbeknownst to herself, the proficiency of her swordsmanship specialty was continuously increasing. This was all thanks to the shape-shifting ghost they had encountered earlier. Li Shi had fought with her other self for several hours. Her understanding of the Tiansong sword technique and its moves had deepened. This kind of special encounter was rare. In addition, Li Shi's talent in swordsmanship was also a prerequisite. This kid controls either skeletons or zombies. He's even scarier than I am. Lu Si felt that things were getting tricky. He immediately lifted the white stone hanging around his neck, bit the tip of his tongue, and spat a mouthful of blood onto the stone. The white stone emitted a faint white light that shone on the ghosts of Huaiwang village. Instantly, the villagers' blood-red eyes flickered, and they became even more ferocious and violent. Bai Xiaowen's insight received a notification. This was a blessing seal cast by Lu Si on the ghosts. It could temporarily increase their movement speed by 30% and attack speed by 20%. Bai Xiaowen wanted to call Li Shi back, but Cecilia held him back. "Don't disturb him," Cecilia said sternly. "He's immersed in swordsmanship. This kind of opportunity is hard to come by. When I was practicing archery, I encountered this kind of epiphany by chance." Bai Xiaowen nodded. After all, if Li Shi was in danger, he could always use the team skill to pull him back. Or, he could just use a return scroll. With this in mind, Bai Xiaowen no longer chose to avoid the attack. Instead, he chose to return the favor. The Wolf King Wrath Claw howled into the sky. At the same time, Bai Xiaowen's cape spread open. Howl and Command Roar were used on the summoned creatures. After all, amateurs were no match for professionals. A feng shui master would definitely be at a disadvantage when it came to controlling creatures in battle against Bai Xiaowen, a psychic. After the double buffs, the villagers and elite ghosts fell like weeds. The number of ghosts gradually decreased. The army of summoned creatures was already closing in on the gate. "Ignorant foreigner, you're digging your own grave." Lu Si gritted his teeth. Chapter 834. Bai Xiaowen chuckled. Master Lu Si sneered. "Don't be so smug. Huaiyurong won't get what she wants. If she can find help, so can I. Kid, I'm not afraid to tell you that while you were here, I've already sent another group of outsiders to the Hua family." Bai Xiaowen cocked his head. "Oh?" The summoned creatures dispersed the group of ghosts and surrounded Master Lu Si. "Now, Huaiyurong and that troublesome Hua old ghost are done for. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to change anything. No one will help you. You'll be trapped here forever." Master Lu Si took a step back. "If you're willing to stop, I'll help you break Huaiyurong's blood curse and send you away." While Master Lu Si was talking, Bai Xiaowen had already picked up the scattered ghost materials on the battlefield. "Mr. Lu, I forgot to mention that there are actually 5 of us," Bai Xiaowen smiled. "Now, there are only 3 of us in front of you. What are the other 2 doing? Use your brain and think about it." Master Lu Si's expression changed. "Are they going to intercept?" "No. Those foreigners who signed the curse seal with me said that you can't attack each other." Bai Xiaowen shook his head and waved his hand, ordering the summoned creatures to attack. He had already shared the information of Master Lu Si and the evil ghost Lu Fu in the team channel. Lu Shicheng, boss level 10, race, humanoid/human, class, Feng Shui Talisman Master, attributes, STR 25, DX 37, BHP 52, WIL 100, Special Skill, White Stone, incomplete, a special treasure that Lu Shicheng possesses. It can strengthen some of his skills and grant him new abilities. Skill 1, Geomancy, incomplete, a feng shui master can observe the direction of the earth veins and build a mansion or tomb to activate the qi flow. Depending on the geography of the mountains and rivers, it will create different effects. Skill 2, Ghost Taming Seal, enhanced passive. Lu Shicheng will leave a seal on a ghost to control its movements. Activating the seal will cause the ghost to enter a violent state. However, the seal's energy will dissipate after the state is over. Skill 3, Wraith Whip, enhanced basic spell. Lu Shicheng condenses resentment and whips the opponents in the cone in front of him, causing light magic damage and slowing down the injured enemies. Skill 4. Skill 5, Charm Master's Seal LV3, gain 500 extra HP and 50% toughness. The Feng Shui Talisman Master Lu Ci's skills did not seem to be very powerful, but there was one skill that had not been cast. The description of the first skill, Geomancy, incomplete, was very vague. Bai Xiaowen secretly paid attention to it. No matter what, Master Lu Ci, who had half a piece of the serene white stone, should be slightly stronger than a normal level 10 leader. Lu Fu, the evil spirit, was also a leader, but he was slightly weaker than Lu Ci. In terms of type, Lu Fu was similar to the elite cursed ghost. It also dealt magic damage with physical attacks. It also had a skill with a question mark. Now that most of the ghosts had been destroyed, Master Lu Ci's Ghost Warding Seal was basically a useless skill. Bai Xiaowen ordered the butcher to charge forward and raise his giant snake staff. Master Lu Ci roared angrily and swung his wraith whip. With a smack, the butcher was forced back half a step, his speed greatly reduced. The evil spirit, Lu Fu, pounced forward and blocked Li Shi's path. Lu Fu's strength should have been stronger than Li Shi's. However, Li Shi's current state was simply too powerful. Every move of the Tianzan swordsmanship was combined with his ghostly speed. Lu Fu's attacks were all dodged, and none of them hit Li Shi. The evil spirit's touch's special ability to ignore blocks and parries was naturally useless. On the other hand, Lu Fu was stabbed by Li Shi's sword again and again. He roared angrily. As a ghost, he had long lost his sense of pain. However, Li Shi's every strike made Lu Fu's body turn slightly illusory, continuously reducing his HP. On the other hand, Master Lu Ci relied on the Wraith Whip's range advantage to prevent the butcher from getting close. The butcher's damage reduction ability could not be used, and he lost quite a bit of his HP. However, Bai Xiaowen followed up with a wave of continuous attacks. After activating deterrence, the butcher threw out his chain and hooked onto Master Lu Ci, who was temporarily stunned. Although Master Lu Ci was a level 10 boss, he was no match for the butcher in terms of strength. He was easily dragged over. Once he entered the butcher's melee range, the butcher would be able to do whatever he wanted. While Cecilia was still cleaning up the remaining ghosts, Bai Xiaowen had already activated rapid fire and was shooting wildly at Master Lu Ci. According to his experience, bosses with spirit had higher magic resistance and lower armor, so he did not use the cold winter wand. Anyway, Master Lu Ci's dexterity was average. With the butcher slowing him down, he would not be able to dodge his bullets. The Wrath Claw and the other summoned creatures swarmed forward and surrounded Master Lu Ci, biting, stabbing, and slashing him. Although Master Lu Ci had more than 1,000 HP, Bai Xiaowen still prioritized killing him. Who knew what this old man's geomancy was capable of? Literally, it was better not to give the geomancer any time to prepare. The White Phoenix team had only sent out 3 people, but they were able to suppress them in all aspects. Lu Fu could barely fend for himself, and Master Lu Ci's HP was dropping rapidly. In a matter of seconds, he had lost hundreds of HP, and his HP had dropped to 70%. You have a death wish. Lu Ci suddenly raised both of his hands, and a strong repulsive force came out of his small body. The butcher, Angry Claw, and other creatures around him were all hurt by the repulsive force, and they all retreated. Wisps of mist gathered, as if all the mist in Huaiwang village had been drawn over. A giant mist vortex formed in the air above the Lu family's house. And the target of the vortex was the evil spirit Lu Fu. I've painstakingly built this geomancy trap to turn Huairong into a spirit king. What can I do about all of you forcing me to do this? You've ruined all of my efforts. Now, I'll let you know the consequences of meddling in other people's business. Master Lu Ci's face was ferocious and filled with hatred. The summoned creatures tried to step forward, but there was a strong repulsive force around Master Lu Ci. The summoned creatures could not even get close. It felt like an ordinary person facing an awakened psionic force field. Once the psionic force field was activated, ordinary people could not get close at all. At the same time, the evil spirit Lu Fu let out a long howl as he was enveloped by the thick mist. The energy waves that surged out from the thick mist were frightening. Chapter 835. In the Lu family's courtyard. A strong gust of wind and thick, rolling fog poured into Lu Fu's ghostly body like a whale swallowing water. When the fog dissipated, Lu Fu reappeared. He had expanded to twice his original size, becoming a 5-meter-tall ghost. His body had also become much more solid. Green veins popped out all over his body. He had a green face and fangs, giving off a ferocious vibe. Bai Xiaowen scanned Lu Fu with his insight. After Lu Fu's name, there was a Wraith Enhancement. Wraith Enhancement, this ghost has been infused with the power of resentment, greatly increasing its strength. Looking at Lu Fu's attributes and skills, Bai Xiaowen found that Lu Fu's 4 attributes had been greatly increased. The most important were his dexterity and constitution. His dexterity had increased to 92 points, nearly 3 times his original dexterity. His constitution had increased to 87 points, more than twice his original dexterity. In terms of skills, Bai Xiaowen found that the evil ghost's touch skill had been strengthened. Lu Fu's normal attacks had a cleave effect, causing damage to all targets in front of him. This attack mode meant that the difficulty of dodging was greatly increased. Other than the evil ghost's touch skill, Lu Fu had another question mark skill, which was beyond the range of insight. Be careful. Lu Fu's strength is probably close to that of a lord, Bai Xiaowen said in a low voice. Lu Fu's total attributes had nearly doubled. After making up for his shortcoming in dexterity, he was on par with a lord. Of course, a lord's strength lay in the priority of their skills and various judgments. Lu Fu was limited by his template and could not compare. Master Lu Ci, the Feng Shui Talisman Master, had prepared this Feng Shui trap in Huaiwang village to refine Huairong into a ghost king. According to Bai Xiaowen's guess, a ghost king should be at the level of a ghost lord. However, this kind of strengthening depended on the ghost's own talent. As a ghost bride, Huairong's talent should be the highest among the ghosts in Huaiwang village. That was why she had a chance of being refined into a ghost king. However, Lu Fu was not as good. The art of geomancy was indeed not a trash skill. Lu Ci's mastery of it was not perfect, and it was considered an incomplete version. Even so, he still had such an insane ability. If it was a master of geomancy, who knew how powerful it would be? Of course, there should be a limit to this skill. A Feng Shui master had to build a Feng Shui layout in advance at the right place and activate it at the right time to have such power. If they were not prepared beforehand, it would be useless if they were suddenly ambushed. Fight! After Bai Xiaowen's observation, he issued a short order. Their target was still Master Lu Ci. At this point, Lu Ci no longer had the repulsive force field that he had when channeling the resentment into his body, so the summoned creatures were no longer obstructed. However, Master Lu Ci did not panic at all. He sneered and said, "All of you must die for ruining my grand plan." Master Lu Ci's hair and beard stood on end. With him as the center, a circle of strange and cold energy suddenly burst forth. It was as if the resentment had materialized into ropes, binding all the surrounding summoned creatures in place. The resentment ropes were like countless dead people's arms tied together. After binding them, they kept tightening, causing continuous compression damage. Bai Xiaowen received a hint from insight that this was a skill that Master Lu Si had not detected, spirit entanglement. It was an ultimate skill for crowd control. Oh no! This crowd control skill has been hidden all this time. Now that he's used it, it must be the time for him to reveal his true intentions. Just as Bai Xiaowen thought of this, the giant evil spirit, Lu Fu, had already arrived. After its dexterity had reached 92 points, its speed had greatly increased. It charged in one direction, and Li Shi could not stop it. He could only follow closely behind. Bai Xiaowen had wanted to ask Li Shi to retreat, but when he recalled Cecilia's words, he stopped himself from doing so. Just as Li Shi trusted his leadership skills, he also trusted Li Shi's combat instincts. The giant Lu Fu charged in front of Master Lu Si and roared into the sky. Clouds of gray fog were spat out of the giant Lu Fu's mouth. They turned into ferocious and terrifying ghost faces in the air, circling around the battlefield. Combat skill, Soul Eater. The shadow assassin was hit by a ghost face. Its HP dropped like an avalanche, and it was instantly killed. Each grimace would cause a large amount of Yin attribute damage, treated as magic damage, upon contact with the enemy. The shadow assassin had a racial passive that made it vulnerable to magic damage, so it was not surprising that it was instantly killed. The other summon creatures might be able to last longer, but from the information Bai Xiaowen had received, this 10,000 Ghosts Devour Soul skill would last for 10 seconds. At that time, the summoned creatures would most likely be wiped out. Even the butcher might not be able to survive. Bai Xiaowen was most worried about Li Shi. She had just chased after Lu Fu, and was currently in the range of Soul Eater. However, Li Shi had already reacted the moment Lu Fu raised his head to the sky. Silently, she placed the mask of the demonic ghost on her face. At the same time, a layer of golden shield appeared around Li Shi's body. A ghost face hit Li Shi, but it did not cause any damage. Two large words appeared above Li Shi's head, immune. What skill is this? Bai Xiaowen was both surprised and delighted. However, now was not the time to ask questions. He immediately turned his attention to how to deal with the enemy. Lu Fu needs to be continuously guided to use Soul Eater. Master Lu Si used the AoE skill before this, which means that he was most worried that someone would interrupt Lu Fu's Soul Eater. The 1,000 Ghosts Devour Soul can be interrupted. Bai Xiaowen's mind worked quickly. He immediately conjured a talisman in his palm and cast a bewitching talisman. At the same time, he shouted, "Cecilia!" Lu Fu was unable to dodge, and the bewitching talisman hit him squarely. However, there was a layer of misty gray shield around his body, which offset the control effect of the skill. Shield of Devouring Spirit, Lu Fu activates a layer of shield to protect himself. It absorbs damage equal to 30% of his maximum HP. While the shield is active, it will also absorb control spells for Lu Fu. This was definitely a new skill that Lu Fu had not yet discovered. Moreover, it did not require any casting action, nor did it need to interrupt the Soul Eater to cast it directly. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen had prepared another layer of insurance. Cecilia knocked an arrow on her bow and shot it out after a short period of charging. Sniper Arrow. Lu Fu's Shield of Devouring Spirit could resist control spells, but it could not resist physical skills. The powerful force of the Sniper Arrow pushed Lu Fu back by 3 to 4 meters. Sniper Arrow Level 4 Special Effect, Powerful Shot. That was not all. After Lu Fu was pushed back, he crashed into the Lu family's old house and was immediately imprisoned. Sniper Arrow Level 7 Special Effect, Stinger. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 836. It was not surprising that Lu Fu's skill was interrupted. Bai Xiaowen was attacking from 2 directions at the same time. He controlled Lu Fu with his spells and Cecilia with her physical skills. There was always a way to interrupt Lu Fu. If they could not interrupt Lu Fu's skill, it meant that Lu Fu's skill was invincible. In that case, Lu Si did not have to wait until now to use his ultimate skill. He did not even use it during the battle with the Ghost Army. Lu Fu was restrained, and Thousand Ghosts' erosion was interrupted. Bai Xiaowen quickly scanned the battlefield. The result was still acceptable. Only the Shadow Assassin was dead. The skeleton sword wielders only had less than half of their HP left. However, they were summoned creatures of elite level and above, so their HP was still safe. Bai Xiaowen and Cecilia continued to attack Lu Si. Their physical attacks were very strong. Lu Si was hit by bullets and arrows, and his HP dropped rapidly. After the effect of Ghost Entanglement ended, the summoned creatures and Li Shi came to support him. Lu Si was in dire straits. Although the Whip of Wraiths destroyed a few skeleton sword wielders, it did not help. He looked at the half-piece of white stone in front of his chest and shouted, Why is Hua Yurong still alive? The Hua family. Both teams were there. They were Team Giant Gods and Team Radiance. The two teams cooperated with each other but were also on guard against each other. They had started the quest for Lu Si's team. Both teams needed to kill Hua Yurong and obtain the White Stone Fragment. However, neither team was willing to let the other's contribution be too high and affect the fight for the Dimensional Stone. At this point, the two experienced teams had already vaguely guessed that the so-called Serene White Stone was the spatial stone they were looking for. Didn't they say that the coffin was in the house and that we could open it after killing Old Hua? After searching for a long time, Qin Bing, the leader of Team Radiance, could not help but speak. Now, even the coffin is gone, let alone Old Hua. I don't know, a slender young man said indifferently. He was Yen Bo, a member of Team Giant Gods. Find it, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Ling Feng strode in front of Qin Bing. Team White Phoenix should have chosen this side of the quest line. If we don't cooperate sincerely, it's very likely that they will take the initiative. Qin Bing shrugged and said, All right, you guys should show your cooperative attitude first. After Ling Feng gestured, Yen Bo took out 2 pages of the diary and said, Here, these are for you. Qin Bing took the page and shook his head after reading it. No, this is Zhou Xiaohua's diary. She only wrote about the Zhou family returning to the city. After that, the contents of Hua Yurong never appeared again. He also took out the remnant pages of his diary and handed them to Ling Feng. Ling Feng frowned and pondered. Someone said, could it be that the White Phoenix team moved Hua Yurong's coffin away? It's possible, Qin Bing said. My goodness, if they run around the village with the coffin, where are we going to find them? Ling Feng shook his head and said, that won't happen. Just like how we tried to persuade Lu Fu and Master Lu Si to move but were rejected, Hua Yurong and Old Ghost Hua will definitely not leave this place. Qin Bing said, You mean, Hua Yurong's coffin is in this courtyard? Several people next to him were startled at the same time, then glanced around and finally fixed their eyes on the dry well behind the millstone. Based on the analysis of the bloodstains on the millstone, this dry well is where Hua Yurong died, so she's probably hiding in the well, Ling Feng said. The hunters of the two teams almost rushed to the well at the same time. However, it was dark below and they couldn't see clearly. Yen Bo tilted his head and said, This is the answer from our captain's analysis, we should send someone down to find it. Don't give me that. Qin Bing sneered. You want to eat it alone? No way. The atmosphere was a little stiff. Ling Feng said lightly, All right, it's just a speculation. We don't know if there's a coffin in the well yet. What's the rush? Huan, shine a light first. A female awakened answered, opened a spell book, and began to cast a spell. A ball of light flew into the dry well and attached to the wall of the well, illuminating the bottom of the well as if it was daytime. Both sides looked at the dry well. What? There's nothing inside the well. Seeing that the dry well was only a few meters deep and was filled with dust, Qin Bing immediately lost his spirit, not to mention a coffin, there wasn't even a piece of wood. He cast a sidelong glance at Ling Feng and said, I say, Great Captain Ling, your speculation is probably wrong, right? Ling Feng frowned and did not answer. Qin Bing turned around and led the members of the Radiance Guild away. Let's go look elsewhere. Ling Feng silently watched them leave. After confirming that they were far away, he said in a low voice, I still suspect that the coffin is here. Everyone, keep looking. After leaving, Qin Bing whispered to his teammates, quick, let's go next door. Why? His teammates were dumbfounded. Qin Bing whispered, I have hidden a page of the diary. There is a key piece of information recorded inside. The one who agreed to marry Lu Fu's son was the second sister of the Zhou family. This diary was written by the little sister of the Zhou family. This matter is definitely related to the Zhou family. The Zhou family is just next door to the Hua family. I feel that if the coffin is not in the Hua family, then it must be in the Zhou family. However, just as the Radiance Guild pushed open the door to the Zhou family's courtyard, a notification came, Ghost Matchmaker Lu Si and the evil ghost Lu Fu have been killed. The Minghan ceremony has been destroyed. Side mission, Serene Whitestone failed. Blood Curse, Ghost Matchmaker, has lost its effect. Qin Bing opened his mouth but did not know what to say. In the courtyard, the Giant Gods Guild, who were preparing to explore the dry well in person, also fell silent. Yen Bo's face was filled with frustration. How can it be so fast? Lu Si is a level 10 boss, and there are so many ghost villagers helping him. It's too fast. Ling Feng shook his head and said, ignore them. Continue looking for the coffin. What's the use? Before Yen Bo could finish, he was stopped by Ling Feng's stern gaze. Ling Feng said slowly, before the White Phoenix Guild meets up with Hua Yurong, we just need to kill Hua Yurong and snatch the other half of the Serene White Stone. Then we will have the qualifications to sit down and negotiate with the White Phoenix Guild. Damn it. The agreement forbids teams from attacking each other maliciously. Otherwise, I would have destroyed the White Phoenix Guild long ago. At the very least, I would have chased them out of this space and not left such a hidden danger behind. Yen Bo's face still had a hint of anger. There's no point in talking anymore. Let's move quickly, Ling Feng said. However, at this moment, a voice came from the dry well. A tall figure jumped out of the well lightly, and then a burly figure with a big red coffin on his back jumped out of the well as well. On the large red coffin, there was also the ghost of a white-haired old man. Qiao Rui and Han Su looked at the Giant Gods Guild and blinked. You guys are good? Chapter 837. There was a subtle change in the atmosphere. After the giant deity battle team came back to their senses, Yen Bo took a step forward and appeared behind Han Su in the next second. He stabbed his daggers at the big red coffin. With a crack, the big red coffin shattered, and the corpse of the ghost bride, Hua Yurong, appeared. Hua Yurong's ghost floated out and looked at Yen Bo indifferently. She had no intention of attacking. Even old Master Hua's ghost didn't attack. Yen Bo stabbed Hua Yurong with his daggers, but the daggers pierced through the air. At the same time, he received a notification that said, Hua Yurong is protected by the White Stone, immune to damage and cannot be targeted. Yen Bo was stunned. Qiao Rui smiled and said, don't waste your energy. As long as old Master Hua and Hua Yurong don't attack you, they will always be in an invincible state. I don't think I need to explain the priority of this state, right? No matter how powerful you are, you won't be able to hurt them. Ling Feng and Qin Bing, who had rushed over, had ugly expressions. If the White Stone was a space stone, it meant that the protection of the White Stone state was equivalent to the highest priority of this treasure space, level 10. Only the White Stone could break the White Stone. Unfortunately, with the death of Old Master Lu, the Blood Curse, Ghost Matchmaker, of the two battle teams had also lost its effect. From that moment on, they were destined not to be a threat to Hua Yurong anymore. Let's go. Ling Feng took a deep breath and his expression returned to normal. Qiao Rui was a little surprised. Ling Feng's psychological quality and ability to resist pressure were too strong. He was the first to adjust. The other members of the two battle teams still had unresigned looks on their faces. the giant deity battle team was the first to leave the Hua family's house. Someone from the glory battle team whispered, "Captain, let's go too. If we stay here, we'll just be a joke." Qin Bing shook his head. "Forget it. When Bai Xiaowen comes to submit the mission, everyone will be cleared out. At this point, it's the same no matter where we go." In the gloomy atmosphere, Bai Xiaowen and the other two finally returned to the Hua family's house and pushed open the courtyard door. After this period of time, Qin Bing had also adjusted. He smiled and went up to them. "Hey, Captain Bai is really powerful. You flatter me." Bai Xiaowen was also in a good mood. "Next, this treasure space will be officially activated. In terms of access rights, I hope Captain Bai can be magnanimous. Our two guilds have always had a good relationship." Qin Bing said shamelessly. Bai Xiaowen was a little speechless. The Radiance Guild and the Super Gods had never crossed paths, right? Although their relationship wasn't bad, they weren't that close. It was just that Bai Xiaowen had a good relationship with Radiance's young master, Xiang Hui. "You're right, the Federation of Light and Legend Chao are like brothers." Bai Xiaowen laughed. "But the access is decided by the guild, so I can't be bothered. Please send a representative over to discuss cooperation." Of course, of course." Qin Bing shook hands with Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen walked up to Hua Yurong and handed her half of a white stone. Lu Fu and his son, as well as Lu Si, have all been killed. Hua Yurong trembled as she took the half of the white stone. She seemed to be sobbing, but as a ghost, she couldn't shed any tears. The bloodstains under her eyes were even more glaring. "Master, we can finally be free." Hua Yurong put the two pieces of broken white stones together. When the two pieces of white stone merged into one, a faint white light shone on Hua Yurong and Old Master Hua's ghostly body. The bloodstains under Hua Yurong's eyes faded inch by inch and disappeared. Old Master Hua's eyes, which were originally white, returned to normal. From a crazy old man, he turned back into an old man in a white coat with an extraordinary bearing. The light from the white stone didn't diminish but continued to spread. With the Hua family's old house as the center, a beam of white light spread to the entire Huaiking village and then to the outer space of the village. One by one, the soulless villagers, bathed in the white light, changed from their original ferocious appearances to their original human forms. One by one, pure souls slowly rose into the sky and dissipated with peaceful expressions. Of course, Qin Bing and the others from the Glory Battle team couldn't see this scene. The moment they were touched by the light from the white stone, they were forcefully expelled from this space. Only the White Phoenix Battle team, who had completed the side mission, could stay. In an inconspicuous corner of the village, Ling Feng faced the spreading white light and slowly closed his eyes. Very impressive. But next time, I won't lose. Where the white light passed, the 5 members of the giant god battle team disappeared without a trace. This is probably a happy ending. We made the right choice in choosing this side mission. Li Shi sighed softly. "Xiaowen, I'm so happy." After killing Master Lu Si and Lu Fu, Li Shi had recovered from her selfless state. However, she had gained quite a lot from this battle. Not only had her single-handed sword technique leveled up to level 9, even her close combat technique had leveled up by 1 level. Her Tianzong sword technique, incomplete, had leveled up to level 3. Of course, this kind of epiphany was a rare opportunity. If Li Shi hadn't encountered the shape-shifting ghost and fought with her other self for a long time, she wouldn't have had such an epiphany. Bai Xiaowen smiled as he helped Li Shi smooth her ponytail. Luckily we didn't choose Master Lu Si's side. In the Zhou family's house next door, the shadow of a ghost was also purified and rose into the sky. It was a girl with long hair that reached her shoulders. She looked to be less than 20 years old. She opened her mouth, and her mouth seemed to be saying 3 words silently. "She's calling Sister Yurong," Qiao Rui said. Hua Yurong glanced sideways and saw the girl. She hesitated for a moment before waving her hand. The girl with long hair was pulled to the front of everyone by an invisible force. "You're Zhou Shuang? You don't look like it," Hua Yurong said. The long-haired girl's ghost was so excited that she almost cried. "Sister Yurong, I'm Little Duo, Zhou Little Duo." "Little Duo?" Hua Yurong frowned and shook her head. "Little Duo is less than 10 years old. She's not as old as you." Bai Xiaowen coughed. "Miss Hua, you've got something wrong. The Zhou Little Duo in your memory was just a child, but she grew up later." Originally, Bai Xiaowen wanted to call her Miss, but it felt weird when she connected it with Hua Yurong's surname. So, he called her Miss. In the era when Hua Yurong was alive, Miss didn't have any extended meaning. Zhou Little Duo nodded hurriedly. "Yes, I returned to Liujia village later and found that it was completely different from before. Then, I was trapped here." "Did you purposely scatter those diary pages?" Bai Xiaowen asked. Zhou Little Duo nodded. "That's the diary I wrote when I was trapped here. Before I died, I wanted to attract the attention of the latecomers and find Sister Yurong to free her. So, I put the diary pages in different places." Chapter 838. When we entered the village, the first page of the diary flew over to us. "Was that your doing?" Zhou Xiaoduo nodded embarrassedly. "I used paper money to write it. After I died, I forgot a lot of things. I only remember the contents of the first page. Only now do I remember everything that happened before I died." Bai Xiaowen suddenly understood. No wonder the other pages of the diary remained after he finished reading them. Only the first page of the diary that flew over automatically turned into paper money after he finished reading it. Bai Xiaowen also understood where the feeling of being stared at after reading the first page of the diary came from. It turned out that it was the ghost of the diary's author, Zhou Xiaoduo. After Zhou Xiaoduo became a ghost, she forgot a lot of things. She only had one obsession left, which was to write the first page of the diary on burnt paper money and spread it to the outside world. Fortunately, she succeeded. "Where's your brother, Zhou Bin? Why hasn't he come back?" Li Shi was more concerned about this. Zhou Xiaoduo looked sad. Not long after he returned to the city, he got an incurable disease. He didn't want to burden Sister Yurong, so he didn't come back. Hua Yurong didn't show much emotion on her face. Obviously, she already knew about Zhou Bin's death. She said lightly, "Lu Shichen killed him." Zhou Xiaoduo revealed a surprised expression. Bai Xiaowen said, "That's possible. Master Lu Si is a feng shui master who is proficient in the art of geomancy. If he set up a feng shui trap in Zhou Bin's place to guide the evil qi, he could have killed him without anyone noticing. Plus, he had a motive to do so." No wonder Hua Yurong's obsession was so strong and she hated Master Lu Si to the bone. At this point, Bai Xiaowen sighed in his heart. Even if Zhou Bin didn't die, would he really come back for Hua Yurong? He could return to the city because of his girlfriend's background. It seemed that Zhou Bin's death might be a good thing for Hua Yurong. Otherwise, she might have one more person to hate, Zhou Xiaoduo said absent-mindedly. "Okay. I'm already a dead person. Master Lu Si got the punishment he deserved. It doesn't matter if I hate him or not. Sister Yurong, I have to go. Thank you for taking care of my family. You've suffered a lot. This thank you is too soft, and it's been many years too late. I'm sorry." At the side, old Master Hua revealed a kind smile. "Zhou, you beat Huang Gai. My silly granddaughter is willing to walk this path. There's no need to thank me. Little Duo, your diary also helped Yurong, so we're even now." Hua Yurong gently nodded her head. "Little Duo, no need to thank me. Also, let's meet again in the next life." Zhou Xiaoduo waved at everyone, and the ghost turned into a beam of white light and disappeared. Hua Yurong said to Bai Xiaowen, "I have to go too." "Thank you." Li Shi said, "You're welcome. We are very happy to be able to help you." Hui Yurong revealed a slight smile and suddenly opened her mouth. 5 small red balls flew out and landed in the hands of the 5 members of the White Phoenix battle team. These 5 red balls were made of pure blood and looked like rubies. This is the blood drawn from your body, now it can be considered as returning it to its rightful owner, Hui Yurong slowly said. I have nothing to thank you for, this stone was left to me by my grandfather, I don't know why it suddenly has a special ability. Now that I have no use for it, I'll leave it to you as a souvenir. Hui Yurong and Old Master Hua smiled and waved their hands. The 2 pure souls slowly rose into the air and then slowly dissipated. Spiritual Realm Precepts Notification, Special Side Mission, Serene White Stone, Ghost Bride Line, completed. You've received a special item, Serene White Stone. You've received a special item, Cursed Blood. Bai Xiaowen was slightly emotional as he looked at the 2 items. Serene White Stone, special item, a gem that contains a fragment of the space precepts. It can be activated in the corresponding space. Cursed Blood, special item, exclusive binding. Increases all attributes by 20%, lasts for 120 seconds. Disappears after use. Putting aside the inevitable quest reward of the Serene White Stone, the additional reward of the Blood of the Curse already made the 5 of them happy. All attributes increased by 20% without any side effects, this item was too practical. This item is good, I should have let Hui Yurong draw more blood. Li Shi clicked his tongue and said, drawing blood and getting a strengthening item, I really don't know where else to find such a good thing. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, there's a scientific basis for this. During the Olympic Games in the Christian era, there were athletes who drew blood in advance to refrigerate it and re-inject it into their bodies before the games to improve their performance. This method is called blood doping. Bai Xiaowen casually explained and then chose to activate the Serene White Stone. Spiritual Realm Precepts Notification, you've received administrative authority of the corresponding space. You can manipulate psionic particles to shape the environment, creatures, and specialties of the space. Current psionic particle storage, 125,000 points. Do you want to show the administrator's console? Bai Xiaowen was a little confused as he chose yes. Then, a virtual interface opened up in front of him and his teammates. There were many options in the virtual interface, from top to bottom, there were 3 major options, environment, creatures, and specialties. Bai Xiaowen first clicked on the environment option, which was divided into basic environment, regional topography, and regional architecture. The basic environment was the overall style of the entire space. The first one was Mist Ghost Village, followed by Haunted Mine, Ghost Town, and many other basic environment templates. Bai Xiaowen noticed that the environment templates all had clear prices. To adopt a certain environment template, one would have to spend corresponding points of spiritual energy particles. The first Hazy Ghost Village cost 0, and the latter cost 500, 1,000, 2,000. The price was getting higher and higher. Li Shi said, why are they all related to ghosts? Can't you change the environment template to a sunnier one? Bai Xiaowen smiled and inquired, how many psionic particles do you need to use a sunnier beach environment template? Notification, the change of environment template you requested has exceeded the psionic particle storage of the space. You can't choose. Bai Xiaowen said, it's just as I thought. Using a new environment and topography here will cost a lot of psionic particles. Compared to the existing environment and topography, the greater the change, the higher the psionic particle storage will be. If my guess is correct, the shaping of creatures and specialties later will all cost psionic particles. This resource is very precious and can't be used carelessly. Li Shi pursed his lips and did not say anything. There's nothing to choose from the environment template. We'll use the original environment without any changes, Bai Xiaowen said and clicked on the first Mist Ghost Village. Chapter 839. After choosing the environment, a virtual 3D map unfolded in front of Bai Xiaowen. There were mountains, valleys, fields, and villages. This was the map of the treasure land. Bai Xiaowen clicked on the regional topography and regional architecture options. Various topography and architecture options that could be added or deleted were displayed. It was worth mentioning that changing the topography also required the consumption of psionic particles. The greater the change, the higher the consumption. If Bai Xiaowen was willing to spend his psionic particle reserves, he could even dig out a network of intersecting tunnels underground. However, Bai Xiaowen only looked at it and did not spend any psionic particle reserves on it. Clicking on the second option, Creatures, Bai Xiaowen received a notification. He could use his psionic particle reserves to create all kinds of creatures that he had seen before in this space to guard this treasure land. Creatures that fit the style of the treasure land would cost the least psionic particle reserves. There was an option called Native Reconstruction. Bai Xiaowen clicked on it. There were leaders such as Hua Yurong, Old Master Hua, Master Lu Si, Lu Fu, and a large group of elite and normal ghosts. If they were of the same level and had the same template, choosing native remodeling would cost the least amount of spiritual energy particles. Lu Si, a level 10 boss and a Feng Shui talisman master, only needed to spend 10,000 psionic particles. In comparison, Bai Xiaowen did not choose to reconstruct the natives. Instead, he created a level 10 leader, Vampire Lord, out of thin air. It cost 20,000 psionic particles, double the price of Master Lu Si. And this was because Vampire Lord was an undead creature that was more compatible with the environment of this space. In comparison, creating a level 10 leader, Archbishop of Light, out of thin air cost 45,000 psionic particles. It was definitely a losing deal. Bai Xiaowen clicked on the specialty resources at the end. Similarly, there were options such as reshaping original resources and creating new resources. In the Native Resources Reconstruction option, Bai Xiaowen could see some resource points that already existed in this treasure land. Yiwen Stone Mine, Barren Reconstruction Price, 5,000 psionic particles. Yiwen Stone Mine, Normal Reconstruction Price, 10,000 psionic particles. Note, a special product, Yiwen Stone, will occasionally appear in the mine. Yiwen Stone Mine, Rich Remodeling Price, 20,000 psionic particles. Note, a special product, Yiwen Stone, often appears in the mineral vein. Occasionally, a special product, Fiendish Energy Crystal, will appear. Jade Phosphorus Flower, 10 years remodeling price, 3 psionic particles. Note, it can be added to a reasonable area of the treasure space in batches to produce plants. Jade Phosphor Flower, 20 years, Ghost Spirit Essence, small remodeling price, 10 psionic particles. Note, it can be added to the special drop list of corresponding creatures in batches. Ghost Essence, large, of course, in the new resource creation, there were more types of spiritual resources to choose from. As long as it was something that Bai Xiaowen had seen before, he could choose from them, such as the Graveyard of Dragons, the Ghost Reefs, the Frost Iron Lodes, and so on. However, the cost of the storage of spiritual particles was also more than double. His teammates' eyes widened. So many resources? Li Shi exclaimed in surprise. Although Li Shi did not understand the uses of Yiwen Stone, Yiwen Stone, and Jade Phosphorus Flower, he knew about the Ghost Spirit Essence. When used on weapons, it could convert the damage of normal attacks into magical damage. It was very effective against high-armor bosses. Qiao Rui was a little moved. He then sighed. It's a pity. It would be great if these resources all belonged to us. Of course, this was impossible. The White Phoenix team had signed a development agreement with the Awakened Association beforehand. This treasure space was not Bai Xiaowen's private property. It had to be open to the outside world. The White Phoenix team and the Super Gods only had the right to open access and the right to share the income with the Awakened Association. In addition, the development agreement had also indicated that teams with management rights could not enter the first exploration phase of the treasure space. They could not disclose any information about the treasure space. This was to prevent teams with management rights from entering the treasure lands and using their familiarity with the area to wantonly plunder the resources within the treasure lands. This was unfair to the other teams. After reviewing the various options on the administrator's console again, Bai Xiaowen slowly said, "I think I understand." Although this was the first time he had come into contact with this kind of administrator's console, Bai Xiaowen quickly understood the situation. He was able to distinguish between important and urgent matters. From the perspective of the administrator of the treasure space, Bai Xiaowen had to ensure that after the treasure space was opened, it would attract enough awakened to enter and search for treasures. They would enjoy it and become repeat customers. This way, Bai Xiaowen would be able to obtain long-term entrance fee. For awakened, what was the most attractive thing? Of course, it was the specialty psionic resources of the treasure space. Therefore, the last specialty should be the most important. Of course, the second creature was also very important. Only by creating powerful creatures could the specialty be protected from being overexploited. Considering that both of these factors required the expenditure of psionic reserves, and the total amount of reserves was limited, there must be a delicate balance between the specialty and the creature. If the creature was too weak and the specialty resources were too rich, it would attract a large number of awakened in the short term. However, every time the treasure space was opened, a large amount of specialty resources would be lost. The automatic generation speed could not keep up with the consumption. Soon, the treasure space would be abandoned due to overexploitation. If the creature was too strong, it would take up a large amount of specialty points, resulting in a lack of specialty resources. After the awakened suffered a loss during their training, the treasure space would be blacklisted. Gradually, no one would care about it. After Bai Xiaowen expressed his understanding, his teammates also expressed their opinions. The creature in this treasure space is a bit weak. There is no lord. Li Shi said. For the main forces of the guilds, defeating a level 10 boss is not difficult. If they kill the boss, won't they be able to do whatever they want in the treasure space? Qiao Rui said, I think we should make a fuss about the access rights. We should not give the big guilds access, or at least restrict the entry of the main forces. After all, from the psionic particle intensity monitoring, this is only a B-level guild mission. We have a reason to do this. Hansu also expressed his opinion, which was rare. I think the treasure space of the Broken Back Mountain Rift Valley is well designed. There is a Lord-level King of Eagle guarding the most important treasure. The King of Eagle is also set to go out to hunt for food. The Awakened can only slowly wait for an opportunity. The King of Eagle will occasionally come back and drive the Awakened out. Bai Xiaowen nodded and said, that is a good idea. Qiao Rui said, unfortunately, the psionic particle intensity of this treasure space is too weak. It did not create a lord. If we don't use the native reconstruction method and create a lord out of thin air, the amount of psionic particle reserves will be huge. Maybe even if we throw in all 125,000 points, it will not be enough. Bai Xiaowen turned to the column of creatures and clicked on the option of reconstruction of natives. Looking at Master Lu Si, Huai Yurong, and the other leaders of the natives, he said thoughtfully, that might not be the case. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 840. Bai Xiaowen clicked on the virtual images of Huai Yurong and Master Lu Si. Reconstructing Lu Shicheng, a level 10 leader and a geomancy talisman master, will cost 10,000 psionic particles. Confirm? Reconstructing Huai Yurong, a level 9 leader and a ghost bride, will cost 10,800 psionic particles. Confirm? Bai Xiaowen confirmed all of them, and the number of psionic particles on the control panel jumped rapidly. Two hazy lights flickered, and Master Lu Si and Huai Yurong's bodies solidified in front of everyone. After they were reconstructed, they looked a little sluggish at first. When they looked at each other, there was no special hatred. Bai Xiaowen inquired, do the reconstructed natives have no previous memories? The Spirit Realm's law gave him a response. No. You can choose to copy and add their original memories, but this will cost you a certain amount of psionic particles. You can also create a memory implant out of thin air, but this will cost you a more expensive psionic particle storage. Phew. No need. This is good enough. Bai Xiaowen exhaled. There was a certain difference in combat strength between two leaders with original memories and two leaders with amnesia, mainly in combat experience. The leaders with original memories should have more combat experience. However, Bai Xiaowen didn't need them to have memories. If they lost their memories, they would forget their past grudges, which would be beneficial to his plan. It was important to note that the reconstructed Huairong and the original Huairong were two separate entities. They could be seen as clones of the original, or rather, cloned ghosts. The original Huairong had been freed, and her obsession had dissipated. Next, it was time to test Bai Xiaowen's idea. He ordered Master Lu Si and Huairong to go to the Lu family's courtyard, and then he had Master Lu Si use geomancy on Huairong to inject her with geomancy. After all, the geomancy trap in Huaiwang village had been set up, and it could be used as soon as it was brought in. Bai Xiaowen remembered that the original Master Lu Si had always wanted to tame the ghost bride, Huairong, and turn her into the ghost king. Although he didn't know how much of an exaggeration there was to the title of ghost king, he guessed that the suzerain wouldn't be able to escape. Thick fog enveloped the reconstructed Huairong, and a soul-shaking howl echoed in the air. The fog vortex stretched dozens of meters into the air, and even the sky above Huaiwang village changed color. This was at least 10 times more powerful than when Lu Fu was injected with geomancy. It seemed that the original Lu Si's dream was right. Huairong had the best potential to become a ghost king. The fog vortex was Huairong. The fog vortex was like a whale sucking water into Huairong's body. Yurong's body was. But the body S's. There was a shadow was a Xiaowen S. Was S, and a S. Bai Xiaowen used insight to inspect Huairong's attributes. He could not help but exclaim, "Awesome! How is it?" His teammates were all concerned. Level 9 Ghost Lord. Bai Xiaowen smiled. Although it's a little weak, it has high dexterity, constitution, and spirit. It has the upgraded Evil Ghost's touch skill. Its attacks ignore parry and have a slow effect. The Lord's skill is Ghost's Decree. It can summon underlings and strengthen them. Based on initial estimates, it's as strong as Zuyun Xian. So strong! Li Shi exclaimed. With such a level 9 Ghost Lord, we don't have to worry about being robbed. Qiao Rui smiled. And the cost is very low. The level limit of this space is level 10. Huairong should continue to grow, Bai Xiaowen continued. In terms of setting, I will place Huairong in her red coffin in the dry well. Lu Si will be placed in the Hua family's old house. He will be the final boss of the treasure space. When Lu Si's HP drops to a certain level, he will awaken Huairong. Originally, Lu Si had absolute control over Huairong after turning her into the Ghost King. But now, Bai Xiaowen was the manager of the treasure space. Absolute control? If Bai Xiaowen said there was no such thing as absolute control, then there was no such thing. If Master Lu Si's absolute control over Huairong was retained, and Master Lu Si released Huairong as soon as he met the adventurers, the scene would be too frightening, and the adventurers would curse. It was much better to design it as a trigger awakening. This was also inspired by the golden-crowned white eagle in the Rift Valley of Brokeback Mountain. In the Hua family's old house, Bai Xiaowen used his psionic particle reserves to place a lot of 50-year-old jade phosphorus flower plants. At the same time, he designed a rich Yin Wind stone mine to pass through here. The most precious Yin Wind crystals and Yin Wind stones were produced in the Hua family's old house, especially where Huairong was sleeping. In short, the Hua family's old house was turned into the richest resource point in the entire treasure space. Bai Xiaowen didn't believe that the adventurers wouldn't take the bait. At this point, the main body of the treasure space was completed. So far, it had cost him 45,800 psionic particles. Bai Xiaowen used his psionic particle reserves to reshape the ghosts of the local residents one by one. Now, there were ghosts with special abilities such as host ghosts, scapegoat ghosts, and shape-shifting ghosts. These ghosts were reshaped by Lucy using the power of the serene white stone. They were placed outside Hwai King village to prevent outsiders from entering, so as to prevent them from ruining his plan. Now that the serene white stone had been transformed into a spatial stone, the serene white stone's blessings, which provided immunity to damage, naturally no longer existed. The host ghosts were very weak. It was unrealistic to expect them to scare the awakened to death. Bai Xiaowen didn't plan to reshape them. As for the shape-shifting ghost, after losing the serene white stone's priority bonus, it no longer had the heaven-defying ability to invade the team's chat channel. Even its mind-reading ability was gone. It could only transform into an awakened's appearance and copy combat skills. It couldn't even copy equipment skills. Bai Xiaowen didn't plan to reshape the shape-shifting ghost either. Scapegoat ghosts were the best choice. He reshaped the scapegoat ghosts in batches and placed them outside Hwai King village. Bai Xiaowen used an extra 30,000 psionic particle reserves to keep the thick ghost fog shrouding Hwai King village. The awakened had to kill a sufficient number of scapegoats and collect ghost camouflage before they could enter Hwai King village to explore. Otherwise, they could only get some scraps from the relatively barren outer area. As for the number of scapegoats, there were at least 100 of them. According to the ratio of 5 scapegoats to 1 ghost camouflage, only 20 awakened could enter Hwai King village at most. The others could only stare from outside. 20 people was only an ideal situation. In actual exploration, the awakened from different factions lacked communication, and it was difficult to find all the scapegoats. In the end, only a dozen or so people could enter. Chapter 841. All in all, our treasured space is still very tempting. Bai Xiaowen cleared his throat and concluded. The Yin Wind Stone mine produces Yin Wind stones. Occasionally, Yin Wind stones and evil energy crystals will appear. These can attract awakened ones to work as miners. Occasionally, special products such as ghost essence will drop from killing ghosts. The outer area can attract weaker elites and standard awakened ones. The core area's rich ores, aged herbs, and high-level leaders can also attract awakened ones with heroic abilities. In short, I think this treasure trove is both attractive and durable. It won't be ruined by the influx of powerful awakened ones. Li Shi chuckled. Like hell I'll believe you. You're such a bad person. In the end, there were still a few thousand psionic particles left. Bai Xiaowen chose to distribute them and randomly generate special resources. This could also bring about a surprise effect and prevent the traces of artificial craftsmanship from being too thick. A notification from the Spirit Realm's precepts came. The psionic particle reserves have been distributed. The treasure trove is about to be finalized. Your temporary creation authority will be revoked. From now on, you will not be able to make any changes to the space. Confirm? Revocation of authority? Wait a minute. Bai Xiaowen was shocked. He had thought that even if the initial creation design was imperfect, it could still be fine-tuned later. He didn't expect it to be a one-shot deal. There was no room for negotiation. Everyone, take a look and see if there's anything to add. We can't change it in the future, Bai Xiaowen said. The more people there were, the greater the flame. His teammates observed and analyzed from various angles for a while. The Hua family's old house is the key. What if someone can sneak in and steal the treasure? Li Shi said. Back in the Broken Spine Mountain Rift Valley, Bai Xiaowen relied on the Shadow Assassin's continuous stealth to pluck most of the Dragon Blood Tea Tree's treasured leaves. This incident left a deep impression on Li Shi. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, No, Master Lu Si is a spirit-type leader. He's fundamentally different from the Golden Crown White Eagle. Even awakened heroes with stealth will be detected if they get too close. Qiao Rui suggested, I think that if we use Lu Si's HP as the trigger for Hua Yurong's awakening, there's a chance that someone might take advantage of it. Once the awakened figure out the strategy, as long as they don't attack Master Lu Si and find a powerful MT to tank him, wouldn't they be able to do whatever they want? Is there such a powerful MT? Bai Xiaowen smiled. No matter how weak Lu Si is, he's still a level 10 boss. His usual attack style is the Wraith Whip, which is hard to dodge. AoE spells. Even Butcher wouldn't be able to last long against an AoE spell that dealt over 100 magic damage. Wait. Bai Xiaowen said thoughtfully, if it were Sister Zhou, she might be able to hold on for a long time. Some of the top hero MTs might be tougher than the Butcher. It's worth a change. Bai Xiaowen then added in the conditions for Hua Yurong's appearance. Other than Hua Yurong's awakening when Lu Si's HP dropped below 35%, the duration of the battle was also considered. If Lu Si's battle duration was more than 180 seconds, Hua Yurong would appear. 180 seconds was also the number Bai Xiaowen came up with after careful consideration. It was just enough time for the awakened who came to the Hua family's old house to have a taste of the benefits, but they wouldn't be able to extract too many resources. Once Hua Yurong awakened, she would start to patrol and clean up the area, with the Hua family's old house as the center. She would only go back to sleep when the treasure space's opening time was over. After adding in this condition, Bai Xiaowen and his teammates carried out another round of adjustments, including the main movement routes and behavior patterns of the creatures in the space, as well as the concealment of some special resources, etc. They tried their best to make it as perfect as possible. Finally, they reached a point where they couldn't change anything, so Bai Xiaowen chose to confirm. The Spirit Realm's law prompted, please name the space. Bai Xiaowen pondered for a moment. Since the White Stone is a space stone, then this space shall be called the White Ghost Realm. The prompt said, the naming is valid. The treasure space White Ghost Realm has been finalized. A string of information appeared in front of Bai Xiaowen. Space name, White Ghost Realm, area, 216. 77 square kilometers, energy level, B+, psionic particle storage, 125000/125000, environment proportion, 24. 54%, creature proportion, 34. 48%, resource proportion, 40. 98%, specialty items. This string of information was stored in Bai Xiaowen's personal information list in the form of the Spirit Realm's law prompt. According to their previous agreement, after returning to the Awakened Association, Bai Xiaowen needed to share this information with the association and let them announce it. The Spirit Realm's law prompt came again. Your temporary creation authority has been revoked. Only the maintenance and management authority of the White Ghost Realm's space is retained. You can also authorize this authority to other awakened. Within 30 seconds, you and your teammates will be teleported out of the White Ghost Realm's treasure space. Bai Xiaowen asked, what does the maintenance and management authority include? The prompt said, before the space portal opens every time, check the psionic particle storage and inject psionic energy points to replenish the psionic particle storage. You want me to spend psionic energy points? This is too much of a scam. Bai Xiaowen held back his complaints and continued to inquire, what's the exchange ratio between psionic energy points and psionic particle storage? Is it 1-to-1? The prompt said, every 10 psionic energy points you inject can replenish 1 psionic particle storage. Bai Xiaowen smiled bitterly. This ratio was very different from what he had expected. However, he did not know how much the ticket revenue was and could not judge the income. He could only silently remember this ratio in his heart. Just as he wanted to ask more, 30 seconds had passed. A white light flashed and a feeling of weightlessness came. Bai Xiaowen and his teammates were teleported out of the White Ghost Realm's treasure space. At this time, only their team of Awakened Ones was left in the North Chiu Kingdom. The Radiance battle team and the Giant Gods battle team had already left. Bai Xiaowen looked back at the White Ghost Realm's treasure space portal. The originally unstable portal had now stabilized, but it did not flash and was in a closed state. Bai Xiaowen stepped forward and touched the portal with his finger. A prompt came. The White Ghost Realm's treasure space is about to officially open. Remaining time, 7 days. Do you want to check the psionic particle storage in the treasure space? Bai Xiaowen chose no. He had just checked and the psionic particle storage was full. There was no need to inject additional psionic energy points to replenish it. Okay, the first phase of our treasure space will open in 7 days. It's a pity that we can't enter ourselves, Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. Let's go back to the Awakened Association first. I'm afraid these 7 days won't be peaceful. Chapter 842. Jinghai Base City, Awakened Association. Just as Bai Xiaowen and the others were designing the treasure zone space, the association and the top management of the 3 participating guilds had already found out the results through their own channels. President's Office. I really didn't expect the White Phoenix battle team to come out on top. President Yang Yongkang smiled and shook his head. Beside him, President Xiang Tian of the Radiance Guild also smiled bitterly. He didn't expect his son's classmates to be so powerful. Li Beihai was grinning from ear to ear. However, he knew how to be humble. He waved his hand and said, "This matter is more mysterious." "It's all about luck," Yang Yongkang nodded and said, "Yes, it's not that the Giant God battle team and the Radiance battle team are worse than the White Phoenix battle team. They have the strength, but they just lacked a bit of luck." Xiang Tian smiled bitterly and said, "President, you don't have to smooth things over. They have to admit that their skills are inferior. It's time for the Radiance battle team to be properly trained." In another office, the atmosphere was much stiffer. Fu Yiping's face was gloomy. "Ling Feng, what's going on? You actually lost to a brat who's not even 20 years old." Ling Feng was silent. Fu Qiu hurriedly said, "Old man, don't be angry." Ling Feng was just careless for a moment and let that brat take advantage of the situation. The next time they meet, Ling Feng will definitely win. "Ling Feng, don't you think so?" Ling Feng nodded and said firmly, "I won't lose again." Fu Yiping's face softened slightly. He sighed and said, "Next time? Do you think there are many chances like this?" "Ling Feng, it's not like you don't know how the treasure zone space is created." Fu Qiu asked curiously, "How is it created?" Fu Yiping shook his head. "I can't say." "Okay." Fu Qiu also understood the rules of confidentiality. Obviously, the creation of the treasure zone space involved confidential information. Fu Yiping walked in front of the blinds, pulled open the blinds and looked into the distance. He sighed and said, "From what you said about the exploration process, the treasured land produced quite good things. I just don't know what an inexperienced brat will do to the treasured land." Fu Qiu said gloatingly, "How would that brat know these things? He's going to ruin a good treasure zone space. He's here." At the entrance of the building, 2 staff members of the association saw the off-road vehicle of the White Phoenix team and hurriedly went over to welcome them. They led Bai Xiaowen and the other 4 to the president's office. After opening the door and exchanging a few pleasantries, Li Beihai slapped Bai Xiaowen on the back. "Well done. Now I can't even call you Xiao Bai anymore. I have to call you Captain Bai." Bai Xiaowen blushed with shame and said, "That's not necessary. You are Shi's father, so you are my elder. Just call me the same as before." Li Shi blushed quietly. Li Beihai laughed dryly and clapped even harder. Yang Yongkang smiled and said, "Captain Bai, congratulations on activating the Space Stone in the North Chiu Kingdom. You've worked hard." "It's not hard at all. I still have to thank the association for giving us this opportunity," Bai Xiaowen said. Yang Yongkang nodded and said, "All right, Xiao Zhao, bring the documents over. We will officially sign the cooperation and development agreement for the new treasure zone space." "Do you have the information about the treasure zone?" "Yes." Bai Xiaowen shared the information about the treasure zone with the spiritual printer and printed it out. Yang Yongkang asked Xiang Tian and Li Beihai to leave first because the following conversation between the 2 sides might involve confidential information. Regardless of whether Xiang Tian and Li Beihai had the authority in this regard, it was a customary rule to clear the place before discussing confidential information. Li Beihai did not find it strange. After giving Bai Xiaowen 2 more slaps, he left the president's office with Xiang Tian and Xiao Zhao. Only Yang Yongkang and the 5 members of the White Phoenix team were left in the office. It's called the White Ghost Territory? That's a good name. Yang Yongkang took a look at the printed paper and said, "Hey, why is the ratio of the environment so high? The ratio of living beings is less than 35%. It's a little too low. Is there a problem with the ratio?" Bai Xiaowen asked. Yang Yongkang shook his head and said, "Generally speaking, it's best not to invest in the environment. After all, the awakened ones are not there for sightseeing. As for the remaining 2, the ratio of living beings to resources is usually 70 to 30. The ratio of living beings is so high." Bai Xiaowen was a little surprised. Yang Yongkang nodded and said, "For a treasure zone space to maintain a positive income, it needs a strong monster to guard it. You have invested close to 41% of the resources, which is very attractive to the awakened ones. However, it can easily lead to overexploitation. Every awakened one who takes any psionic item from the treasure land will cause a corresponding loss of psionic particles. And these losses all require me to spend spiritual energy points to replenish them?" Bai Xiaowen confirmed. Yang Yongkang said, "Not entirely. Because when the treasure zone space is closed, it will absorb spiritual particles from the outside world to restore its reserves. According to the ratio you set before, it will continue to generate monsters or resources. However, the treasure zone space's natural recovery speed is too slow. This is why the treasure zone basically opens once a year, or even once every 2 or 3 years." After a pause, Yang Yongkang sighed and said, "This is your first time designing a treasure zone. It's normal that you don't know this. If you encounter this kind of opportunity again in the future, you have to be more careful." The situation after the treasure zone space stone was activated was also confidential information. Before, Bai Xiaowen and the others did not have the corresponding authority, so naturally, they could not be disclosed. Otherwise, they would have violated the confidentiality rules. In fact, Yang Yongkang was a little regretful. He originally did not think that the White Phoenix battle team would be able to obtain the Space Stone. After all, compared to the 2 A-class battle teams, the White Phoenix battle team was more like a prince. If he had known this would happen, even if he would be punished for violating the confidentiality rules, he would have told Bai Xiaowen about this in advance. Bai Xiaowen, on the other hand, was very relaxed. He smiled and said, "President Yang, I know the layout of the treasure zone. You don't have to worry about this." Yang Yongkang clearly did not believe him. However, now that the treasure zone had been finalized, it was too late to say anything. The 2 sides officially signed the cooperation and development agreement. In fact, it was just the implementation of the agreement signed before. The terms were all set before. The White Phoenix battle team had the authority to manage the treasure zone. They were responsible for issuing access permits. The Awakened Association was responsible for daily monitoring, access control, and other matters. In the end, the White Phoenix battle team received 70% of the ticket revenue and the Awakened Association received 30%. If there was a need to inject spiritual energy points to replenish the spiritual particle reserves, both sides would share the costs according to the aforementioned ratio. Some people might ask why the White Phoenix battle team did not leave the Awakened Association and go alone. The answer was impossible. This was the unified Huaxia, not the chaotic Southeast Asia. There was no need to talk about the specifics. 7 days later, the first exploration phase would begin. In the final pricing, Bai Xiaowen referred to the Awakened Association's proposal and set the foundation stone price at 800 spiritual energy points. What was the foundation stone price? It was the entry fee for a level 1 awakened under the standard template. The real price was multiplied by the level coefficient and template coefficient. For example, a level 7 elite class needed to pay a fee of 800 by 7, level, *1. 5, template, to enter the White Ghost region. That was 8,400 spiritual energy points. If it was a level 7 hero class, it would need to pay a fee of 800 by 7, level, *2. 5, template, which was 14,000 spiritual energy points. Chapter 843. After understanding the price, Bai Xiaowen made a mental estimate. In the White Ghost domain, the monsters were between level 8 and level 10. High-level awakened ones and even max-level awakened ones could enter. On average, the price of the entrance ticket was between 8,000 and 10,000 psionic points per person. The 216 square kilometers of space was more than 20,000 hectares. It was more than enough to accommodate 1 or 200 awakened ones to explore. After calculating, each opening would bring in about 1 or 2 million psionic points. The White Phoenix squad could get 70% of it, so it should be at least 1 million psionic points, Bai Xiaowen smiled. Looking at it this way, it was quite promising. 1 million psionic points was equivalent to a reserve of 100,000 psionic particles. The upper limit of the White Ghost domain was 125,000 psionic particles. After deducting the 30,000 psionic particles from the environment, the thick fog that shrouded the periphery of Huaiwang village, the amount of psionic particles that could be plundered by awakened ones would be 95,000 psionic particles at most. In other words, at least the treasure land would not lose money. Every opening of the treasure land, no matter how powerful the awakened ones were, how much could they plunder? With the restriction of the ghost spirit disguise and the ghost lord Huayurong, there was no problem in protecting the richest resource land. Besides, most of the resources in the treasure land were mineral veins. The efficiency of manual mining was low. It was impossible to mine the entire mineral vein in a short 1 to 2 weeks of exploration. In this way, the maintenance and replenishment after each opening would not cost much. Not to mention, the treasure land would slowly recover its psionic particle reserve over time. It only needed to be opened every 1 to 2 years. Of course, the awakened ones who entered would not lose out. They might even make a lot of money. Take an elite level 7 awakened one as an example. He spent 8,400 psionic points to enter the treasure land. During this time, he only needed to dig out a dozen Yin Wind stones to break even. If he was lucky, he could find a Yin Wind stone or even a Yin Wind crystal and make a small fortune. Moreover, during the battles in the treasure land, there was a chance of obtaining materials such as ghost spirit essence from killing monsters. They could also accumulate combat EXP. As for why it was a win-win situation for Bai Xiaowen and the explorers, it was because the treasure space was a big cake that constantly produced resources. Even if Bai Xiaowen, as the manager, took the biggest piece, the other explorers could still get a small piece. To use an inappropriate analogy, Bai Xiaowen was like an ancient emperor who had conquered a piece of rich land and then encouraged the people to cultivate it and collect a certain price for the land. A large number of people rushed over, and the end result was of course that the treasury would be filled, and the people would benefit. Now that I think about what I did when I was exploring the treasure trove, it seems like I wasn't very friendly to the manager of the treasure trove. Bai Xiaowen rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. 1 seconds, Bai Xiaowen felt a stabbing pain in his conscience. But then, his thoughts turned to something else. It seems that there are still restrictions on the people who enter. For example, the main team of those grade A guilds must not be allowed to enter. If they kill Huayurong, it will be a big loss. Although it was rare for a team to be able to kill a Lord-class monster, and usually, it would require a long period of careful preparation and a certain amount of leverage, it was not impossible for a strong team to use advanced technology and kill Huayurong with a group of evil ghost minions. It was necessary to set restrictions. After signing the agreement and everything was finalized, President Yang Yongkang seemed to be in a good mood. He said with a smile, "Now that you have the authority, I can reveal some confidential information about the treasure trove. Do you know how the treasure trove was created? It seems to have something to do with the Great Unification." Bai Xiaowen muttered in his heart. This was his guess. But on the surface, Bai Xiaowen shook his head and asked for advice. President Yang smiled and said, "The treasure trove on Earth, as well as the psionic training grounds of various sizes, are actually space fragments of the spirit realm. You should have heard of Great Unification, right?" Bai Xiaowen nodded. President Yang said, "When a spirit realm is unified, it will enter a remodeling process. During this process, a small amount of space fragments will fall on Earth. Some of the space fragments will generate space stones to maintain the existence of the space. This is the treasure trove. Most of the space fragments do not have this opportunity and will gradually shrink into a point, which we call a singularity." After a pause, President Yang continued, "After we detect a singularity, we will use a special psionic container to capture it. After bringing it back, we will open it again. This is the origin of the psionic training grounds. In other words, the most important thing is the space stone." Bai Xiaowen frowned and took out the space stone of the White Ghost's domain. "What kind of existence is this? It can actually maintain the existence of a space." President Yang smiled and said, "That I don't know. Of course, there is a guess. The space stone is actually a psionic treasure that is fused with the space law fragments, and the law fragments are stripped from the origin of the laws of the remodeling of the plane world." "Stripped? Then wouldn't the remodeled plane world be incomplete?" Bai Xiaowen said. President Yang shook his head and said, "There are gains and losses. Just like how human cells are constantly being metabolized and replaced every 3 months, the origin of the laws of the plane world should be the same. This theory can also explain why every time the world is remodeled, there will be many changes in the details of the new plane." Bai Xiaowen suddenly remembered what Hua Yurong had said before she was freed. "This stone was left to me by my grandfather. I don't know why it suddenly has a special ability." Confirming President Yang's words one by one, Bai Xiaowen was speechless. This theory might be the truth. Perhaps the white stone was just an ordinary piece of jade in the past. Later on, when it was imbued with the space law fragments, it became all kinds of special abilities. The era of psionic energy, psionic particles, the plane of the spiritual world. How many secrets are hidden in all of this? One day, I'll stand at the top so that I can see through all these secrets without fear of clouds, Bai Xiaowen thought to himself. President Yang stood up and stretched out his hand to Bai Xiaowen with a smile. "Captain Bai, I'll let the local news broadcast the news about the opening of the White Ghost domain. During this period of time, you should try your best to promote it. The opening of the first phase of a treasure land is the most attractive. I hope it will become a hit." "Definitely," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. The 5 members of the White Phoenix battle team left the president's office. "How should we promote it?" Bai Xiaowen thought for a while and casually posted a message in the virtual community. "Hello Big Scum, I'm Bai Xiaowen. White Ghost Domain, I haven't played the new version of the ship in 4 years, so I need to try it out 3 times. Like me, I love to borrow this treasure land." Chapter 844. Bai Xiaowen still had a lot of fans. Usually, his public account in the virtual community was managed by Sister Zheng's team. Now that there was a sudden post, the fans who paid attention to it were a little confused. They didn't get the joke. Of course, with the principle of whatever an idol does is cool, the fans still left comments and replies. Soon, there were thousands of replies. Bai Xiaowen glanced at the comments and sighed. After all, it was a joke from 100 years ago. It was normal that people didn't know about it. Many people didn't take Bai Xiaowen's post seriously. However, with the media in Jiangnan, the news that the White Ghost Realm had been successfully opened up by the White Phoenix team spread quickly in the circle of awakened people. The news quickly spread to various universities. Soon, Bai Xiaowen's post was dug up by the combat students in the universities and new replies were posted. 666, I worship the big boss. White God has already opened up a treasure space. Is the world of geniuses that scary? I originally wanted to sign up for the exploration, who knew that my level is not 2333. I don't even have the chance to look at White God up close. I'm preparing for my second awakening mission. I'm crying out loud. White God should be considered a big boss with a treasure space. I wonder where he ranks in the circle of awakened people in Jinghai City. The last comment caused a lot of heated discussion. There were many replies on the building within the building. Of course, there were people who were more pertinent. No matter where he ranks, at least for this week, White God's words definitely won't be lower than any of the big bosses in the association. Looking at the replies of these people in the circle, Bai Xiaowen was happy. He liked a few comments that were pleasing to the eye. Now, the gap between Bai Xiaowen and the combat students in the universities was very big. The students didn't even meet the requirements to enter the treasure space that he opened up. Unlike ordinary awakened people, the leaders of the major guilds could get basic information about the White Ghost realm. The Guild of Fine Martial Arts. Specialties account for 40%? Creatures only account for 30%? Wu Chonglian looked at the information sheet in disbelief. It's a pity that our guild is not on good terms with the super gods. Bai Xiaowen will definitely not grant us access. Wu Chonglian's face flashed with regret. It's such a good opportunity to make a fortune. It's such a pity to miss it. That's right. I took a look at the treasured land's specialty items. There are actually baleful stones and baleful chi crystals. These things are excellent auxiliary forging materials. Giant God's Guild. Fu Yiping shook his head. Prodigal, what a prodigal. A good treasure land, a source of income that can be operated for a long time, will be abandoned after the first phase. Next to Ling Feng, the assassin Yan Bo said, "Can we think of a way to get the permission to enter?" "That's impossible," said Ling Feng lightly. "If I were in Bai Xiaowen's shoes, I would also not allow an A-class battle team to enter a space with an energy level of B+. He has a good reason to refuse." Fu Yiping sighed. "Even if you are not an A-class battle team, that brat Bai Xiaowen will not let you in. He will even reject the other awakened ones of the Giant Gods Guild. That brat is not that open-minded." Ling Feng said, "It's normal. After all, that's what we do." Fu Yiping was speechless. The Giant Gods Guild had the right to manage 2 treasured lands. However, these 2 treasured lands were closed off to super gods. Awakened ones of super gods were not allowed to enter. This was also a method for large guilds to restrain small guilds. However, 40% of the resource allocation, and the creatures are so weak. It's really a good place to plunder. "If you miss this village, you won't get another chance like this," said Yan Bo. "This opening will definitely cause Bai Xiaowen pain. He may not be able to make up for the loss of his psionic particle reserves even after a few years." "Yes. After Bai Xiaowen suffered this loss, he can only let the treasured land recuperate for a few years. He won't dare open it again." "Can we find a way to talk to the super gods?" someone suggested. The Elite Martial Arts Guild and the Giant Gods Guild, 2 forces that had extremely bad relations with the super gods, had sent people to negotiate. Needless to say, the other guilds, large and small, had even sent people to negotiate. This was what Bai Xiaowen meant when he said that these few days would not be peaceful. The threshold of the super gods was about to be broken. Li Beihai pushed all the representatives who came to negotiate to Bai Xiaowen. This was not to avoid being lazy. It was a wise move to avoid Bai Xiaowen's dissatisfaction. This was a treasured land opened up by the White Phoenix team. Naturally, it had to be managed by the White Phoenix team. When the team was first established, it was clearly stated in the contract that the White Phoenix team was only in name under the super gods. The super gods had no right to interfere with the arrangement of personnel and the distribution of team profits. In any case, Bai Xiaowen also had a negotiation team headed by Sister Zheng. There was no need for Bai Xiaowen to handle these matters personally. The enthusiasm of the various guilds was high. In addition to the local guilds in the Jinghai region, the large and small guilds in the Jiangnan region had also heard the news and came over. Even the entire southeast region had received the news and came because of the reputation. Everyone had the same idea: they could not miss this once-in-a-few-years banquet. Compared to the treasured lands that had a 70-30 ratio of creatures and resources, the White Ghost region's 3-4 ratio of creatures and resources was too good, wasn't it? It was simply letting everyone pick up the money. Bai Xiaowen was also very leisurely. The instructions he gave to Sister Jing were not to agree easily. He and the Awakened Association had already discussed it. Based on the stability of the treasured land's spatial portal, it was best for the first batch of Awakened to not exceed 200 places. These 200 places were scattered throughout Jiangnan and even the southeast region. It was like sprinkling a handful of pepper powder in the sea. There was simply no supply. The emperor's daughter did not have to worry about marriage. Although Li Beihai had already stated that he did not care about the treasured land's quota, there were still people coming to invite him to dinner. Li Shi was in Bai Xiaowen's team. Who wouldn't know about the relationship between Bai Xiaowen and Li Beihai? These people could not see Bai Xiaowen, so they wanted to use Li Beihai as a roundabout way to persuade Bai Xiaowen to open up the quota. The other higher-ups of the super gods had also more or less received these requests. These days, Li Beihai and many other higher-ups felt that their faces had swelled several times, and the weight of their words had increased by a few degrees. Li Beihai took the lead and rejected all the gifts and requests that came to his door. With the president being so direct, Bai Xiaowen felt even less of a psychological burden to reject the other higher-ups of the super gods. As for what the higher-ups thought, Bai Xiaowen was too lazy to care. He and Li Beihai had deep considerations on how to make good use of these quotas. Soon, Bai Xiaowen and the Radiant Guild reached the first agreement, and the Radiant Guild was allocated 15 quotas. In return, the Radiant Guild would also allocate 15 quotas to the super gods when the treasured land in the desert maze opened next time. Of course, the rule that A-class teams were not allowed to enter had to be added. Chapter 845. You are blackmailing us. Fu Hanxiang's finger trembled as he pointed at the terms of the contract. Repurchase at a 100% rate? Do you want our people to work for free? Sister Zheng, who was sitting opposite him, was calm and composed. She said with a professional smile, "How can it be called working for free? The repurchase is based on the market price. We are not asking you to pay unconditionally." Fu Hanxiang said angrily, "But we still have to pay the entrance fee. On average, each person is close to 10,000 psionic points. The mind ores and herbs are all bought by you at the market price. Where are our profits? Our luck is almost not even enough for the entrance fee." Sister Jing shook her head and said, "Mr. Fu, I have already expressed my attitude from the beginning. Think about what your guild has done to our guild. We have already agreed to open the entrance permit to the Giant Gods Guild. This is already the limit. You are not in a position to ask for more." Fu Hanxiang suddenly stood up. "You are not opening the entrance permit. You are deliberately playing with us. It seems that there is no room for discussion. Goodbye." Sister Jing shrugged and said, "I won't see you out." The assistant girl, who had been holding back her laughter, finally could not help but laugh after Fu Hanxiang left. She got up and packed up the materials. In fact, they were just pieces of white paper used for show. "Sister Zheng, this negotiation seems to be meaningless from the beginning." "It is purely a waste of time," the assistant said. "There is no other way. Mr. Bai means that the Super Gods Guild has to give the impression of being open-minded and magnanimous. They cannot refuse the application of the Giant Gods Guild without reason. We are just helping to pretend." Sister Jing swiped the phone screen and sent a message. "Take a 15-minute break. Go to conference room 314 for the next negotiation. Lily, go to my filing cabinet and get the materials for the last item, 014. Okay." The little assistant ran over in a flash. Beep beep beep. Bai Xiaowen turned on the phone screen and saw a message. He smiled and said, "Sister Zheng is complaining to me again. It is indeed difficult for her. I will treat her to a meal later." "Let's put the meal aside and see what is in the treasure chests first," Li Shi said. In front of the 4 members of the White Phoenix battle team were 2 golden chests. They were the drops from the 2 leaders, Lu Si and Lu Fu. Before this, the half-piece of serene white stone was taken from Lu Si's corpse as a special item. It had nothing to do with the treasure chest. Later on, Bai Xiaowen and the others were in a hurry to complete the mission and create the treasure land, so the treasure chest was never opened. These 2 treasure chests were rated B, mainly because the 3 hero classes had participated in the siege, and Lu Si wasn't a rare boss. First, he obtained 2 items from Lu Fu's treasure chest. Extreme Vengeful Spirit Essence, special item. When smeared on a weapon, it will grant the weapon the passive skill Evil Ghost Touch. The passive effect lasts until the Evil Ghost's touch kills an enemy. The maximum duration of the passive effect is no more than 30 minutes. Usage, 1/1. Disappears after usage. This was obviously the upgraded version of Ghost Essence. If used well, it would be very effective. The team assigned it to Li Shui. The other item was a gold weapon called Evil Ghost's Claw. This gold weapon's attack power and special effects were mediocre. It wasn't even worth trading, so it could only be disassembled. After Bai Xiaowen dissected it, in addition to obtaining 12,000 spiritual energy points, he also obtained a portion of golden beeswax, which was a pleasant surprise. Lu Si's treasure chest also dropped 2 items. Geomancy, incomplete, skill book, teaches you the Geomancy, incomplete, skill. The other item was a special item. Brass compass, special item. This compass hides a mysterious power. Please find a professional in this field for more details. These 2 items are probably a set, Bai Xiaowen said. If there's an empty skill bar, I can learn Geomancy and see if I can discover the secrets of the brass compass. But forget it. I have 4 skills now. It's a waste to forget any of them. These 2 items could only be thrown into the inventory for now. Suddenly, Bai Xiaowen received another phone call. He glanced at the number and a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. He chose to answer the call. The person on the other end of the phone said a few words. Bai Xiaowen only replied with 1 word. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Bai Xiaowen stood up and said, "Someone asked me out for afternoon tea. She, come with me. The rest of you are free to do whatever you want." Li Shui was dumbfounded. "Who is it? Who wants me to go with them? Long time no see. Should I call you captain by now?" Fu Hong, who was in casual wear, sat opposite him and said with some emotion, "While I was away from Jinghai, you've become a big shot in the awakened circle. Even the stubborn old man who refused to acknowledge you has to acknowledge your existence now. I don't deserve to be called a big shot." Bai Xiaowen tilted his head. "Senior, have you left Jinghai?" "I went to the Jinling branch to train. Today, there was an urgent call to urge me to come back. I just got off the teleportation portal and felt a little weightless when I walked." There was a hint of helplessness in Fu Hong's smile. "Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you that I was summoned back." Bai Xiaowen smiled and did not say anything. "Speaking of which, maybe you don't know. I've always advocated for working with you to resolve our differences and develop together. The reason why my family sent me to talk to you is because of this. Maybe they thought that you and I have a friendship?" Fu Hong shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I've told my old man. Actually, we haven't worked together much before. Even if the guild sent me to talk to you, the effect might not be better than Fu Hanxiang's." Bai Xiaowen said, "Since Senior Fu has spoken, of course I have to give him face. Don't belittle yourself on this point." Li Shui pursed his lips quietly. Fu Hong smiled. "Although I know that this is just captained by being polite, I still have to be thick-skinned and ask. Can our guild, the Giant Gods Guild, get some spots to enter the White Ghost region? I don't ask for any preferential treatment, as long as we can be treated the same as the awakened from other guilds." Neither of them mentioned the buyback of 100 spots. This was an impossible ratio. Bai Xiaowen smiled slightly. "Senior Fu should know what I want. I understand, Fu Hong said. Our guild has 2 treasure lands under our name. Which one do you fancy? We can exchange spots on an equal basis. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, Senior Fu is a straightforward person. I'll also be frank. An equal exchange of spots is not enough. After all, the White Ghost region is a newly opened treasure land. The benefits of the early exploration are extremely high. Senior Fu should understand this point. What else do you want? Fu Hong frowned slightly. The smile on Bai Xiaowen's face remained unchanged. He slowly spat out 5 words. Psionic Ability Training Ground. Chapter 846. Psionic Ability Training Ground? Fu Hong narrowed his eyes. The super gods can't even give you a psionic ability training ground? A team with such potential is indeed a little aggrieved. Li Shi frowned and then smoothed her brows. She remembered her ladylike demeanor and did not want to show her boorish side in front of her opponent. Otherwise, she would have rolled her eyes long ago. Bai Xiaowen did not continue. He smiled faintly and said, Currently, our guild only has a small psionic ability training ground, but we have 2 teams. If the timing is reasonable, it's actually barely enough. However, it's the same as wanting to improve housing. I also want to get a bigger psionic ability training ground. Fu Hong said, This kind of transaction involving the psionic ability training ground should be negotiated by your guild and paid the corresponding price. As the captain, you have too many things to worry about. After a pause, Fu Hong said, If I were the president of your guild, I would definitely give priority to ensuring your training. The White Phoenix team is currently winning all the way. Compared to the results of the Super Gods team, even a fool knows who should be trained. Hum. Li Shi declared her presence. Senior Fu Hong, we don't need you to comment on our guild's internal affairs. Sorry, I'm just stating facts. Since Junior doesn't want to hear it, I won't say it. Fu Hong was very clever. He knew how powerful pillow talk was. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, Compared to fighting for limited resources within the guild, I'm more willing to explore new resources. Fu Hong touched his chin and said, But the psionic ability training ground is very important. Our guild has no intention of transferring it at the moment. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, Senior Fu, you're saying something that doesn't match your heart, right? Since I mentioned this matter to you, I must have done my research in advance. As far as I know, your guild currently has 4 psionic ability training grounds. 1 large, 1 medium, and 2 small. The large psionic ability training ground is already enough to satisfy the first and second teams of your guild. The 2 small psionic ability training grounds can accommodate them for individual practice. The remaining medium psionic ability training ground is basically unused. An idle spiritual energy training ground should cost close to 100,000 spiritual energy points to maintain every year, right? Bai Xiaowen stared at Fu Hong and said with a smile, I can give you a reasonable price to get rid of this burden and achieve a win-win situation. Why not? The spiritual ability training ground was not maintained by spatial stones, so it needed to be maintained. Otherwise, it would naturally shrink. What was the meaning of protection? Normally, constantly injecting spiritual energy points into it was equivalent to maintaining it. As for the unused training grounds, he had to inject psionic energy points regularly so that the space would not shrink. Fu Hong laughed bitterly. I'm at a disadvantage in this negotiation. He was far away in Jinling and had hurriedly taken the transmission array to come here today. How could he have the time to figure out Bai Xiaowen's background? The negotiations were unfair from the start. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, It's all right. I can briefly explain the situation on my side to you. Currently, our White Phoenix squad does have a spiritual ability training ground that we can use. Even if we don't use the guild's small training ground, I can still apply to rent Jinghai University's training ground. Senior Fu should understand that I still have some influence in my alma mater. However, as a student who graduated early, I don't want to take too much advantage of my alma mater. In addition, the rented training ground is not as comfortable as my own training ground, Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. So, even if your guild insists on not selling the spiritual ability training ground to me, you can't stop the daily training of the White Phoenix Squad. Fu Hong nodded silently. He knew that Bai Xiaowen was telling the truth. After hesitating for a moment, Fu Hong said, "Is a small training ground okay?" A small training ground was economical and affordable. In addition to the small space, the disadvantages were that the functions that could be controlled were relatively weak. The functions such as mental recovery speed, skill cooldown reduction, and so on were inferior. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said firmly, "I only want a medium-sized training ground." Back then, at the auction of the Awakened Association, we spent a total of 1 million psionic energy points to get this medium-sized training ground. Fu Hong sighed. The old man personally raised the bid. At that time, the Giant Gods Guild was only level B and did not have a large training ground, only 2 small ones. This medium-sized training ground was the pride of the entire Giant Gods Guild and carried the memories of a generation. If I go back and propose to sell it, I really can't imagine the consequences. Bai Xiaowen said faintly, "That's the past. Now you have a better and bigger training ground." The heavy burden of 100,000 psionic energy points per year just to maintain the memories of the older generation is too expensive. Maybe the Giant Gods Guild should optimize the asset structure, Fu Hong said. But this is not for me to decide. I'm just a messenger. Then the question is, how much is Captain Bai willing to pay to impress the old fogies of our guild? Bai Xiaowen said, 700,000. Fu Hong smiled bitterly. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to explain this price. Bai Xiaowen said, the significance of this deal is not only that you can immediately get 700,000 psionic energy points, but also that you won't have to pay maintenance fees every year in the future. It's equivalent to an additional 100,000 psionic energy points per year. In recent years, I should be the only one in Jinghai who has the intention and the financial resources to buy this intermediate training ground. There's no one else. The structure of the large and small guilds in Jinghai-based city had long been stabilized. Unless another force like Bai Xiaowen suddenly appeared, no one would be interested in the idle intermediate training ground. Take the Guild of Elite Martial Arts for example. Even if they succeeded in the League One, they would only seek to buy the large-scale psionic energy training ground if they wanted to expand. They would not be interested in the medium-sized training ground because they already had one. No matter how good the relationship between the Guild of Elite Martial Arts and the Giant Gods Guild was, they would not help their big brother carry this burden. Senior Fu? Bai Xiaowen called out. Fu Hong recovered from his contemplation. He nodded and said, personally, I'm very happy to see this deal come to fruition. But after all, I don't have the decision-making power. I can only promise you that when I go back, I will try my best to persuade the higher-ups to facilitate the deal. Bai Xiaowen stood up and stretched out his hand. Then, I'll wait for Senior Fu Hong's good news. There's not much time left before the White Ghost's domain treasure space officially opens. I hope that your guild will give me an answer within 3 days. Fu Hong nodded and said, back to the original topic. If the psionic energy training ground deal is successful, how many slots are you willing to exchange with us for the space? Bai Xiaowen smiled and raised 2 fingers. 20. I think this number should be enough to meet your guild's needs. Chapter 847. Over the next 3 days, Bai Xiaowen instructed Sister Jing to loosen up in various negotiations and agree to some quotas to put pressure on the Giant Gods Guild. For those powerful guilds who had 1 or even 2 treasure spaces, Bai Xiaowen used the quota exchange as a condition to help the awakened members of the super gods obtain more access to other treasure spaces. As for the awakened members of small guilds or even random people, they could only agree to buy back as a condition. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen's request for a buyback ratio was not high. After each awakened member left the treasure space, they needed to sell 20% of the resources harvested in the treasure space to the super gods. Of course, it was to be sold at a fair price. The White Phoenix team could not participate in the first exploration phase, so they could only use this method to obtain the special resources in the treasure space. For the White Phoenix team, the income from the tickets was enough to make a lot of money. After all 200 quotas were sold, it was estimated that they would have an income of at least 1 million psionic energy points. After deducting the Awakened Association's share, the White Phoenix team could still make a net profit of 700,000 to 800,000. Bai Xiaowen, who owned a treasure space, was already a powerful awakened leader in Jinghai City. His influence was greater than that of many leaders of small guilds. In contrast, although the virtual store made a lot of money every day and had a higher income than the treasure space of not open for 3 years, but open for 3 years, it did not bring much weight to Bai Xiaowen. The main reason was that the nature of the business was different. Just like in the Christian era, Bill Gates and Rockefeller. Let's not talk about the specifics. Of course, the Yin Wind Stone and other psionic materials produced from the treasure space and repurchased from the awakened members could also be sold in the virtual store. They could get 30% or even 50% of the profit after reselling. Bai Xiaowen did not forget his old classmates from his alma mater. He deliberately left 5 quotas for Jinghai University. It was useless to leave too many. After all, the level of the treasure space in the White Ghost domain was too high. Awakened members who were too weak would not be able to gain much by entering. Only the current main members of the school team could come and train. 2 days later, Fu Hong found Bai Xiaowen again. "You win." Fu Hong sighed. The old man finally relented. 700,000 points of spiritual energy. Pay it all at once, and the medium-sized spiritual energy training field will be yours. Bai Xiaowen smiled. Senior Fu, this is a win-win situation. No matter how unwilling Fu Yiping was, he could not do anything about it. The maintenance cost of nearly 100,000 spirit energy points every year, the temptation of 700,000 spirit energy points, and the first exploration slot of the new treasure land. All these factors forced him to put down his pride and make a wise choice. Actually, there was another important reason why Fu Yiping agreed. He felt that there was a huge flaw in the design of the treasured space in the White Ghost domain. The quality of the creatures was too weak and the resources were too abundant. The exploration of the treasure trove this time was a feast of carving up the spoils. When Bai Xiaowen saw the spoiled treasure trove, his expression would definitely be very interesting. How could the Giant Gods Guild miss out on such an interesting event? Of course, Fu Yiping's inner thoughts would not be made public. However, Bai Xiaowen could vaguely guess a thing or two. He had long seen through the old man's personality. After Bai Xiaowen inspected and tested it, he quickly completed the transaction. After paying 700,000 spirit energy points, the spiritual energy training field originally known as Giant Gods 3 officially belonged to the White Phoenix Squad and was renamed White Phoenix I. Bai Xiaowen also specially bought a standalone villa in the Crimson Fire District and moved the spiritual energy training field to the basement of the villa. He spent a total of 40 million to buy the villa. However, Earth's currency was just a number to Bai Xiaowen. He did not feel anything about it at all. His quarterly share of the virtual template sales was far more than this. On the day that the relocation of the medium-sized spiritual energy training field of White Phoenix I was completed, Bai Xiaowen invited his friends and family to celebrate. Li Beihai said with emotion, "A medium-sized spiritual energy training field. Back then, our guild also thought about it, but unfortunately, we could not compete with others. Later on, the guild was in a slump, so I did not have this thought. I didn't expect you to succeed." Old Devil did not say anything. He knew what Li Beihai was thinking. If the guild had a medium-sized spiritual energy training field, perhaps Ling Feng would not have left. Bai Xiaowen laughed. "I'm just taking advantage of the new treasure land to start a fire." If Fu Yiping himself did not want to sell the spiritual energy training field, I wouldn't be able to find a buyer even if I had the funds. Old Devil said, Captain Bai, there's something I need to tell you. Seeing that Old Devil was a little embarrassed, Bai Xiaowen laughed. Uncle Old Devil, just say it. Old Devil said, Nya Kong and the others want to treat you to a meal. When are you free? Bai Xiaowen shook his head and laughed. I think the meal is just an excuse. Their real intention is to take a fancy to this training field. Uncle Old Devil, you've already done your duty by taking the initiative to leave the team. There's no need for you to do them a favor. Old Devil sighed. After all, we're comrades who have fought side by side. They're all good to me, especially Nya Kong. Forget it, I'll reject them for you. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and said, there's no need for a meal. They can use this training field if they want, but they can't affect the training time of the White Phoenix team. Old Devil quickly said, of course, they only need to make use of the free time when you're training. It's not a problem whether it's meal time or night time. Li Beihai wiped his face and did not know what to say. However, he was very happy. The problem that had been troubling him was the relationship between the main team and the White Phoenix team. Now that the main team had taken the initiative to curry favor with the White Phoenix team, the conflict between the two teams should not be aggravated anymore. It had to be said that those who had control of the resources were the big shots. They could do whatever they wanted. Li Shi whispered, Xiaowen, when did you become so magnanimous? Bai Xiaowen glanced at her speechlessly. What are you saying? I've always been magnanimous, okay? Besides, it's not like we have to use the training field 24 hours a day 365 days a year. We have nothing to do, so what's wrong with letting them use it? It can also save us some mana points for maintenance costs. Qiao Rui smiled and said, in the end, the captain has never treated those from the Super Gods team as competitors. They're not qualified. The three of them chatted in the team channel, so there was no need to worry about being overheard by the outside world. Li Beihai said again, they probably heard that the Giant Gods Guild obtained permission and the Elite Martial Guild also sent people to negotiate. Ha ha ha, I can imagine the expression of that old guy Wu Chonglian. It must be as uncomfortable as eating shit. Dad! Li Shi called out reproachfully. Oh, Xiao Bai. Do you think the Elite Martial Guild's application should be accepted or not? Li Beihai asked. Bai Xiaowen smiled. Just accept. Don't they also have a treasure land under their name? Use the quota to exchange, but it can't be a 1-to-1 ratio. I want 1-to-2. If you agree, then agree. If you don't agree, then forget it. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.